Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. What's up?
How is everybody?
Fine.
Fantastic, fantastic. If you're wondering about your examinations, I'm still grading papers. Just got the copies from BIFs. Today is what, Wednesday, on Tuesday. So I'm still grading papers. I should be getting grades to you guys somewhere in the next 2 days or so by email. So keep checking your email. Okay. How was the paper overall, by the way?
The paper, I thought the paper was really good. I felt there should have been some multiple choice.
You think multiple choice is easier?
I feel multiple choice is easier. I mean, if you know, you could eliminate process of elimination.
Oh, the process of elimination.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, point well taken.
Hey, Mr. Wilkinson. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Tanya. How are you?
Hey, I'm good.
Afternoon.
My stomach was breaking down because I was expecting to get the grades today.
Oh my God, you're one of them.
Yes, I am one of them.
No, unfortunately, everything was shut down until Tuesday, and then Miguel forgot on Tuesday to print off the examination. So I had to go down there early this morning and collect them, and so I've just started looking among all the other things on the agenda. So hopefully in another 2 days or so, I'll have your grades for you. I will be sending them to you individually by email. So um, if you don't see it in your regular box, please check your junk, but it should be in your regular box because I have everybody's email already.
That's fine. You know what I was expecting? I was expecting us to have where you can log on to our actual site and the exam would have been time and you log in your answers like that.
Oh, that kind of examination.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting. That's what I thought it would have been.
No, not quite. Usually you would see that for what we call international or external examinations. All right. Here at home, well, we've been in this pandemic for a while, so it's become a way of life for some persons. But before the pandemic, we actually attended classes every week down at the BIFS Institute, and all examinations were done in-house.
Oh, okay.
Face to face, yeah. We started doing them online in this fashion because of the pandemic, but slowly moving back to face a little at a time, which, by the way, will include your final exam next week. That will not be virtual.
Okay.
Okay. The final exam next week will be face to face down at the institute. Everybody knows where the institute's office is on Shirley Street.
I'm aware of it.
Yeah, sir.
Yeah. So that's where your exam will be next week at 6 o'clock. So you can park in the lawyer's office if you need parking on the other side of the street from the institute. We have a big old parking lot that's donated to users, and so you can feel free to use that parking space if you need it. Okay.
Only thing, Mr. Wilkinson, with that exam, I was just uncomfortable because I had to go from one screen to the next, go back on Zoom and get the questions up back and forth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of tedious.
Yeah, I know. Normally it would not have been that way. We had a slightly easier method that we were using earlier in the pandemic. Something went wrong with our provider, so we had to improvise. When I say we, I mean BIFs. The administration had to improvise. And yeah, I know that created a little of a stickler, but that's okay. I just kind of flipped through the papers and I see everybody was able to get through the madness anyway.
Yes.
And that was good. Okay? That was good. All right. Any other questions on points on the examination? Okay.
Mr. Wilkinson, so what about the persons in the family islands, Grand Bahama, Abaco, with the final exams?
Doggone it. Who in this group is from the family island again?
Myself.
Majority is students.
Myself, Danielle, and Chalisha.
All of you guys are in the islands?
Yes.
My. That's an interesting point.
Very good question.
Obviously you can't be there face to face. What we will probably do is Miguel and company will set up virtual in the classroom where the other students will be. So even though you will not be there physically, you will be there virtually with your colleagues under the same conditions as you had before. Okay, that is more than likely going to be the case. So I need to make a note of that so we don't have any hiccups. Okay, who is in the islands again?
Myself, Danielle, and Chalisha.
Okay, that's Ellen.
Yes.
Okay, Ellen, Danielle, and Shalisa. Okay. I will have a talk with Miguel to make sure that we do this so you guys will not have any issues. So tentatively, he will send you a link as we've been doing, as we did last week, and then you log in and you'll be set up with your colleagues next week in the examination center. Okay. Any other questions? That's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. So we don't have any hiccups at the last minute, hopefully. All right. If you think of anything, feel free. Like I said, the holiday weekend kind of threw things out of whack. I wish I'd gotten the examinations before. I don't know what happened down at the institute. If I had gotten them before the holiday weekend, I could have graded them and have them for you during the weekend. But like everything in life, things don't always work out the way we wish or even hope. So hang in there a little bit longer. You'll be getting your grade soon. All right. So we have just one final session today on a smaller version of our semester called the collection side of things. And so I just want us to get right into that. The collection side of things, I think if you've looked at it already, I think it's about 13 or 14 pages of information. But be careful with this particular bit of information. It looks like it's not page intensive, but there are a lot of important concepts in the pages that we'll be discussing. So you don't want to miss any of them. The final exam will again be similar to what you did last week, but it will be purely from a collections perspective. There will be no questions on credit in in next week's examination. Okay, so all you need to do is focus on this information if you haven't begun already, and I hope you did some of it during the holiday weekend, and just keep going over the material, and you should be fine next week. Okay, again, it's not difficult. It's just that there are a lot of moving parts in it, and you want to make sure you know what they are and you don't mix them up. All right. So before I begin with the collection discussion, let me say that collection activity, you know what? Before I do even that, let me take my register before we get all excited. I forget to do this. All right. Lavonia, are you there? Lavonia. Okay, Sophia.
Yeah.
Sophia is there. Tanya, I saw a moment ago, yes?
I'm here.
Okay. Leslie, of course, I saw a moment ago. Christophe. Kiss my foot, no Christophe? Does anybody know what happened to Christophe?
No, I'm here. It looked like something, this other thing pop up on the screen. You doing something else?
Oh, those are just the notes that you have in your text.
Oh, yeah, pop up. All right. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I put it on the screen so you could see it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, but it's the same thing that you have in your text. Okay, so you're here. So Christophe, this is your baby, so to speak, the collection side of things. And those who have not ever been involved in collections, you get an interesting introduction to the world of collections. When you do credit collections too, there's much more collection activity that we'll be talking about in terms of um, collection agencies and legal action and how to use lawyers or not use lawyers to try and the courts in order to be effective in your collections activity. Because some customers, no matter how you call them, they still won't pay. They keep promising, they still won't pay for whatever reason. You have to end up eventually putting them in the small claims court, or in some cases even the Supreme Court, to try and get a judgment against them so that the courts can force them to pay. All right, and even then, sometimes you don't get all of what is due to you, or it certainly doesn't get done in any reasonable period of time. Because people sometimes leave town, pay slowly, pay some now, pay some later. They make your life a living hell, even after you get a judgment against them in the courts. So collection activity could be exciting. It's an exciting activity. It's very important to the organization to get the money back, but it can also at times be one of the most frustrating jobs that you might encounter in terms of dealing with people and their money that they swore they would pay back when you gave them the loan. God knows it on their mother's grave. They'll pay their loan first, they say. Just whatever you do, give me the check. And then some people after a while they forget that promise, and then suddenly we're in this part of the discussion, which is the collection side of things. Okay. All right, Danielle. Danielle?
Hi.
Okay, there you are. Ellen.
Yeah.
Okay, Ellen, yes. Got your note. Shalisa? Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Lavanya, are you there yet? All right. So then, if everybody can see the notes that I have on the screen, it's the same notes that you have in your text. You can follow either way. It'll be fine. But the first thing that pops up in this discussion has to do with developing a collection strategy. And the most important aspects of developing a collection strategy has to do with creating or having collection policies, just like credit, and of course, setting targets. Now, can somebody suggest what a collection policy might be by definition? Similar to a credit policy, but for collection purposes. What might that policy look like in a short sentence?
It's a setup how an account should be collected on in case of a default.
Absolutely. It's that written document that the company prepares telling everybody how to go about collecting the outstanding money of the company or the financial institution or whatever the case might be. Remember, collections is not only a buying problem. Anybody who gives credit will eventually have a collections problem. So it's not only for banks, it's anybody, any company, retail, bank, financial, personal, lawyer, plumber, doesn't matter. You as an individual will all incur some form of collection activity eventually. Because sooner or later, somebody will not pay. So this policy is supposed to be written in such a way that it directs anybody who works in collections on how to collect on behalf of the company that they work for. Now, most collection policies have similar characteristics. Depending on the company, though, some of the instructions and directions might vary, but at the end of the day, the objective is the same, to collect the company's money and to collect it as quickly as possible. Okay? So that's why a policy is very important. I don't know if any of you have grown up in a house where parents might have said, "I don't care what you think, but the policy of this house is that there will be no sleepovers." Okay? That was one of my policies when my kids were growing up. No sleepovers. In those days, they would say, "But Dad, suppose it's my cousin." I said, "No sleepovers means no sleepovers." But that's my. I said, "I know they are cousins. My position is the same." Oh, Dad. Right? But that's how policies work. It's designed to be a guide on how things are to be done, what to do, what to avoid doing, and what steps are necessary and satisfactory to collect on behalf of the company. The other thing in developing collection strategy is setting targets. Now, I'll ask Christoph because he works in collections at the moment. Do you guys set targets, Christoph? Christoph?
Yes, sir. We have targets. No, sorry, it wasn't muted. And I thought I unmuted, but I muted.
Yeah.
Uh, yes, sir. We have targets on. Well, we have a yearly target, and then they will, I guess, measure it quarterly.
Okay. And who does the measuring?
We have the credit risk manager. When we have our meetings, well, the collections manager have to report. Well, you have to send the stuff to the credit risk manager, and then I guess that's when we find out what is what in terms of the meeting. And I guess any queries you have or anything what potentially could make your job easier, that's the window there to state your case, and hopefully the credit risk manager send it through and we will get some results on it later. But yeah, we have targets now. The whole thing was is to collect the money, but now we actually have targets. They restructure, so we definitely have targets that we have to make. I guess to determine performance and then
Indeed.
because with collections you easily could you could just people think it's a slack job, which it could be, but at the end of the day, your results to show if you actually working or doing anything. Because you can't make someone pay, but your results to show the effort and the reports which you bringing in and the stuff that you're doing. That's I guess that's collections in a nutshell. And
Well, that's certainly the whole purpose for setting targets so that we can monitor performance. Um, Without targets, yeah, some people will slack off and it'll be hard to figure out to monitor what they're doing. And then without targets, you can't measure who's being productive in their efforts and who are not quite as easily. So that is the whole idea. So the target might be for the month that you're either going to contact 40 delinquent customers or you're going to collect $100,000 that month or both.
yeah, and say then like everything counts. Simple as you have an account. See, like people might think, yeah, you have $100,000. They have the get people to bring in under that. No, you might have accounts where you monitoring and the stuff out of that because stuff happens. Someone payrolls might do something. You have to fix that as collections. That's something which you have to go and look into because that get dragged on to the next month. And remember, it's a system. If 1 cent missing, the system will flag that as a late payment because the system only recognize the amount what it's supposed to put inside there. Now you have to manually go and check to see what's the issue and then try to rectify it.
Well, again, that again is one of the aspects of the collections process that a lot of people are not aware of until they get to working in the collections department. That a lot of the problems with delinquency is not just that people did not pay. It could be with a payroll breakdown. It could be that a payment was supposed to be taken off manually and somebody forgot. It could be
Or
a number of things.
like simple, for instance, let's just say a pensioner. It's a prime example. A pensioner, NIB would make two payments in December. They would make two payments in November because they wouldn't do anything in December. Now, the system doesn't recognize that in November. No, the system sees that as one payment. In December, the system looking for that payment. Now, you have to manually override and advance dates or do something on the back end that everything goes fine. Because if you don't do that, come January, that person flashing delinquent and stuff like that. So it's things that what you missed, or simple as the frequency. Someone's supposed to pay twice a month and the loan only get allocated as once a month. Person automatically delinquent, but that's an in-house error, and you may end up jumping the gun, calling the people saying you short or anything like that, but that's in-house. And that means you have to talk to the next department to sort that out.
So again, the point is that all delinquency is not because people didn't pay. Many of the problems are technical, many of the problems are in-house, many of the problems are based on errors, and many of the problems are just plain flat delinquency on behalf of the people who work within the organization. And this is what makes delinquency and collection activity so dynamic. So for those of you who are thinking it's only a matter of calling the customer to bring out doggone money, it's not just that. In many cases, that might turn out to be the easy part depending on who you call. Some of the bigger problems are those internal, technical, technological, and other stuff. And you mentioned something about the system. For some reason, people still seem to think that the system has any sense. It doesn't have any sense whatsoever. It only can do what we tell it to do. So if you don't go in and do the manual overrides, the system obviously is not going to acknowledge it because it doesn't have the ability to do it. Right? So again, these are all again internal issues that could impact customers. And oftentimes when that happens and we don't do our checks internally and call the customer, they're like, man, my money's there. Get the hell off the phone and go and check. And then when you check, you find it is indeed there, and so on. All right. So this is the kind of stuff that makes um, collection activity exciting and necessary and important. Okay. And again, these targets are designed to monitor performance so that collectors don't kind of get laid back and hopefully not lie about the work they do and this kind of stuff. They go out again, as he said earlier, it's not only a matter of whether you collect all the outstanding overdues. That's the objective, but certainly it's about did you make an effort to do it? And if you didn't get it this month, then what was the result? What did the customer say? What is the plan to get it? And so on. And that should be indicated clearly manually or electronically in the system so that anybody can come in and see what productivity has taken place with regards to that account. Okay. So with that in mind, then that is the strategy of collections, coming up with a policy and setting targets. And remember, strategies are long-term plans, and a policy and a strategy is a long-term plan for effective collection activity. All right. So then let's see what some of the details are with regards to this strategy, policy, and targets. Notice at the very beginning, we are told that the collection strategy should normally have two parts. That's what twofold means. First of all, it should be divided into risk categories, and we'll see those categories shortly. And second, that every collection activity within an organization should be designed for what we call frequent collection contacts. Who knows why it's important to contact delinquent people frequently, often?
I mean, basically, I guess to keep them on their toes. and to keep them aware of the loan, because people go contrary, in my opinion, and they go there and do something else, or they just forget about paying on the loan.
And then
Mhm.
they only pretend to forget. Trust me, there's an old saying that debtors have short memories and creditors have long memories.
Yeah.
That is true in principle, but the reality is debtors only pretend and act like they forget by their behavior and by their statements sometimes. But I can,
Then, mhm. Mr.
yeah,
Wilkerson, we had a situation today where people don't realize that if they pay their accounts back, they end up paying more than they actually agreed to.
right.
Because we had a customer, she complained, she said, hey, my account isn't going down. I say, because basically what you're paying is past due amount. And then when you make payment, it's actually going towards your principal. And after you get down your principal, it goes towards your interest.
Indeed. And a lot
Yeah.
of people are not aware of that. And it's very important when that happens to educate the customer, or you find the customer will question you, and then you have to bring them up to date. And some may say, I didn't know, and others big start cursing and get very upset because they're not clear about it, or they understand the reality of their situation finally. Okay, so yes. And again, all of that stuff that she mentioned is part of the collections process. Okay, it's not black and white. There are a lot of gray areas in collections. This is what makes it such a dynamic job. And if you're excited about doing things, collections can be a very interesting place to work. You learn a lot of things about a lot of things as a collections officer. Say, certainly not a job to be taken lightly, or certainly not a job to be perceived as unimportant. A lot of people think, oh, you just call people and collect money. Any fool can do it. No, any fool cannot do it. As a matter of fact, you want to keep collections out of the hands of any and every fool, because it's not a fool's job. Right? That's the point. All right. So yeah, the first thing you do in achieving this strategy is to divide your accounts into risk categories, so you know what the risks are. We'll see in a moment. And then call your customers often. The more often you call them, the more they will understand the importance of making a payment. Customers are funny. If you don't call them too often, they don't forget. They just don't bother to pay until they're ready, if at all. And so the old saying is they will respond sooner to those who call them more. All right, generally speaking. So the second part of your strategy has to be with calling them frequently. Has anybody ever been delinquent for a company in the United States? Or know anybody who's been delinquent for a company in the United States? Great, because whenever you do become delinquent with a company over there, just know that they will be calling you 3 and 4 times a day, sending you emails and letters several times a week. They will harass you into your grave if you do not pay their account. Not to mention, they will report you to the credit bureau, which will cause your credit score to go down significantly and take you a long time sometimes to get it back up to par. Okay? A lot of people in places like the United States and Europe are suffering because they have bad credit. Ever heard about bad credit? Anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. And with the credit bureau coming in the Bahamas, we're going to have people with bad credit too. They're just going to be found out now. And many people will not be able to get a loan because of their credit score.
That's why your bonus question was so interesting. I actually give you my pros and cons to that question.
That's perfect. Because I was hoping some people would object, some people would be for it, against it, and some people would give a balanced perspective. Either way, if you attempted the question, you got credit for doing it. There was no right and wrong answer for that one. Only to your opinion, which you are entitled to. And I wanted to see how persons were going to express their views in writing. That's why I don't like multiple choice too much anyway, because it doesn't test our writing skills, nor does it give us any reminders on how we should be writing. And so when the time comes to bloody write, we write all kinds of funny stuff because we're out of practice or we never knew it in the first place. So you'll find if you're doing my examinations, I may give them sometimes, depending on the examination, but I'm not excited about giving multiple choice questions because it takes students out of the realm of thinking and actually reproducing information in their own words and in their own handwriting. Okay? I still see people struggling today to write constructive sentences. Doesn't mean you need to be perfect and all that stuff with doggone PhD in English. That's not what I mean at all. Doesn't mean you can't make mistakes in your writing and your grammar. That's not what I mean. It's just that it's always a good idea to be able to do the fundamental things um, as best as you could. Because you always call upon to write stuff, and you never know when you're going to get that promotion where your life goes from doing technical stuff to actually writing all the time. Then what? Then next thing you know, you're elected to parliament, then you have to write stuff. Before you know it, you're prime minister of the Bahamas, and then you have to write stuff. And you say, man, I should have done a writing course back in the day. All right. The point I'm making is it's a good thing. All right. So yeah, I'm sure that lady must have been shocked when she found out that all those payments she was making was not going to go to anything such as significant until past overdue amounts have been paid. That's how it works with any overdue account. Whatever you pay will go towards paying off the overdue balance first. Then you go back to business as usual and not a day before. All right. So call customers often. And when you call them, the first time you're nice, the second time you're still nice, but not as nice. The third time you're increasingly less nice, professional, but not sounding so chippy, not sounding frowsy and stinky, but not sounding so chippy as either way. So you might, if the customer is delinquent the first time you call them, Susie, you're late, you've always been paying on time, and hope everything is fine. Please note your payment date is X. Nothing happens, you call back and say, you didn't respond the first time. We're very concerned that you didn't. We're asking you to come in before we have to take further measures. If still no answer, you leave a third message or letter. Look, this is BMC again. If you continue to operate in this fashion, we will have to report your account to the credit bureau and blah, blah, blah. And you know what the consequences are. There'll be this, this, and this. Please don't cause us to have to contact our lawyers to deal with this matter going forward. The point is, each call or each letter becomes a little more intense with the hope that the customer will panic or not panic, just acknowledge their responsibility for the money they borrowed from you and swore on a stack of Bibles that they were going to pay it back, even if they didn't have to eat. Anybody ever had a customer like that? No, only me?
Yes, Mr. Wilkinson, that's so funny. They do.
They do.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely, more often than people think. Okay? Absolutely. Same people getting married. When it's time to get married, everybody's excited. Oh yeah, please let's get married. I'll cook every day and I'll make sure you have clean shirts and I'll take you out to dinner, Mary, and I'll be a attentive husband. Everybody's making promises. And they're okay in the first couple months, the first year, maybe 2 years, even three sometimes.
In
Then
the midst of the pandemic, one
yeah,
of our car collection agents, she called one of the customers. The customer say, she was just rolling this joint and miss and pick up the phone.
so yeah, thank you so much for that example. Because your colleagues get to see this thing is not a fairy tale. This is real. And this collections thing, just like credit, is about real people with real problems and real bloody idiosyncrasies. All right. And chances are they use your loan payment to buy that joint, by the way. All right. So yeah, it's a very interesting job. Okay. So those are the two things that collectors should always be thinking about, no matter who you're collecting for, what job you're in, where you go. If that's your job, you need to know what your risk categories are and you need to call customers regularly, all right, and increase the intensity of each call or each letter so that hopefully the customer will come in before the matter gets worse. Okay, so what kinds of risk categories then should you be thinking about? Well, in your text, I've given them a label. What is the label that I gave the risk categories in this example? Anybody?
Alphabetical,
Yeah.
no, A, B, and C. What you
Only,
mean, the rating format?
yeah, only A, B, and C?
No. What,
Any
what,
more?
you mean from A to E?
Yeah, from A to E, that's the rating.
Oh,
Okay. Now, some companies use numbers, some use letters, and some don't have any ratings at all. They don't know what we mean by ratings. They just keep calling every day, bring people money, boy, or whatever, like that. But those who are more organized and structured, they'll have these risk categories, and they'll have their clients classified accordingly. Okay. So if you're an A client or one, as for some companies, and you're a prime customer, you pay everything on time, nobody has to call you. You pay things off within the designated period, no sweat. You always want A customers. Then you might have what you call B customers. These customers pay their good accounts, uh, but we keep them within a certain limit because we don't want them to find themselves getting credit that they cannot afford and start falling behind and becoming delinquent. So they're good. We just keep them within certain control so that they don't get out of hand in terms of too much credit they can't handle. C customers, as usual, they're the marginal ones in the middle. They have the ability to pay, but they have very unsatisfactory payment records. Some of them actually pay slow or stop paying, sometimes for reasons known and unknown to the collector. You have to try and dig it out of them, like, John, you can pay this thing, why do you keep paying late? And they give you all kinds of reasons why I pay late because I get paid late. They can't change the date. I like paying late. It feels good paying late. I don't want nobody tell me when to pay. I'll pay when I want to pay. So they'll pay off your loan eventually, but never in a timely fashion. Okay, marginal account. And then of course you have the D customers who are very high risk. Okay, the chance that they'll become write-off accounts, delinquent and then write-offs because of whatever reason they leave town, they hide in Inago or whatever the case might be, is very high. Hopefully, you don't have too many of those in your portfolio. Um, but if you do have a couple of those where payments keep coming later and later and later, you can't find them too often. You have to call all kinds of references to reach them. You're probably dealing with a D customer that eventually will become a bad debt account, which might eventually become an account you have to write off. And therefore that particular account becomes a complete loss to the company. They made nothing out of it, or not much. And then, of course, you have your e-customers who, well, they don't get credit, do they? Who are the e-customers?
I guess you, let me see, think,
It's right there.
that's just like senior citizen, well, it's in cash on the accounts where prepayments are required before the sale. I trying to get a category. I guess senior citizens could be one because honestly, they could get credit, but they would have to be cash secured to be able to do that because every time, I guess, let's see, past 65, not past 65, once you go up from 60, the insurance on the loan itself diminishes. So I think by the time it hits 70, is zero coverage on it. So you on your own if you lend someone without being cash secured at that age.
Yeah, when
Give
you need
credit to them.
when you need things, emote you on your own.
Yeah, because I think every 60 by 60, I think maybe it's 75%. By 65, I think it's 50. Yeah, by the time it hits 70, I sure is zero. There's no coverage on it. So
I'm just getting you youngsters ready for when you turn 70. When you need it the most, you're on your own. As a matter of fact, when you reach 60, nobody wants to give you a loan anymore at all, unless you're rich.
yeah, cash, yeah.
Not cash. If you're rich enough, they'll give it to you without cash security. Because, like for example, if Brent need a loan, they'll give it to him.
Man can't spend the money what he generate. He a generation money he can't spend.
That's what, if I wanted, they'll if you read me the right act, tell me, dude, your best years are behind you. Go home and wait. You need no loan.
but Mr. Wilkerson, that is so important because we also don't extend credit to persons in the age of 60 because they can retire at any time.
Indeed.
They can retire at any time, and then you don't know if they can retire before the term of the loan is completed.
Well, if they retire before the term, remember retirement doesn't determine whether or not they pay the loan. We just do that for banking and financing purposes. Just like, for example, people who make big salaries, they don't always pay you well. And people who work in the stock market and make small salaries elsewhere, pay very well.
But some of them are good, you know, because they would say when they get their package, they will pay you from that, or they will come in to arrange to make payments.
And not only some of them, many of them. And I will tell any prudent banker, if a retired person comes in to get a loan, don't just usher them to the door because they're retired. You might be pleasantly surprised at their ability to pay that loan because they may have some sources to pay it from that you may not be aware of, and some well substantive sources too. So because they're 60 and over, don't be too quick. You might lose important business. Sit down and talk to them and find out how they pay the loan. Many of them will tell you, I'm retired, but my pension is 3,000 a year. My loan payment is only 200. You're still going to turn me away if you can get it from my pension, correct? Correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So lenders and collectors, keep your mind open. We have this predetermined notion about retired people that they shouldn't get any loan ever again, just go home and wither away and die. But that's not necessarily the case.
I think companies have to look at that because sometimes, more than often, that is actually companies' policy.
I know. I used to be a lender 40 years ago. Okay? Trust me, with Bank of Nova Scotia. So I know. And it was the same issue then as it is now. The only difference was 40 years ago, I was a youngster with an afro thinking I'll never be this age. Because how in the world am I going to live that long? So to speak. But you do live that long sometimes. So yes, the financial institutions need to go back to that policy. I'm not saying it's not a reasonable policy, but be careful. Don't turn people away just because. Because the person who's 25, you don't really guarantee that they'll pay you because many of them don't pay it either, do they? Do they?
You're right, Mr. Wilkinson.
All the time.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not the age of the person, it's about their ability to pay and their character.
Yeah.
It's about their ability to pay and their character, no matter what age they might be. Okay?
Oh, that pension, the probability that coming in voices that Atlantis, the 25-year-old from Atlanta.
The pension is guaranteed.
Yeah.
That's my point. But you give that guy a $40,000 car and he give you half of a down payment in a month or 6 months or a year. The car may be sold, stolen, broken up, busted up, whatever. And if that happens, dog eats your lunch. He's going to forget he has a loan payment in his mind. Okay? Which is probably not going to be the response from the person whose payment is coming from their pension. They know it's coming. And so they're going to be very careful about that. Plus, the pension is guaranteed. That youngster is not guaranteed necessarily. So we have to be flexible in our thinking, whether it's on the credit side or the collection side. Just keep our minds open and look at all the issues. Okay, before we say get out or no. All right. Okay, so the collection policy then that we talked about earlier should have certain specifications, just like the credit policy. Now, this list is not an exhaustive list. This is just to give you an idea if you're planning to write a collections policy for your company. Some of the things you can think about that should be in there. For example, the policy should state whenever an account is past due. There's a 5-day grace period. The policy should indicate that after 5 days an account becomes delinquent. Before 5 days, it is not delinquent because it is considered a grace period. All right, but in any event, the policy should be clear on that. All right. Also, if there any suspension of credit, like somebody is trade buying and selling goods and services, and they're not paying the invoices, for example, then the company who's selling the goods on credit might say, you know what, Ellen is not paying her account in the 30 days that we agreed. She keeps going to 60 and 90 days. This is not good. I'm suspending credit to her until she gets her act together. Okay? The policy should be clear on that stuff. Okay? Also, it should be clear on who will do the follow-up of past due accounts, who will be making the collection calls, the letters, and so on. Should be clearly expelled out in the policy, whether it's going to be a junior credit person, a supervisor, somebody in between, a manager, whoever is going to be responsible for what. All of these things should be clearly written out in a policy in detail.
All right, Mr. Wilkerson, I have a question.
Yes.
I mean to disturb you. What does it mean when it said a policy has matured? It went to its mature date.
You mean which type of policy?
Like if just say you get a regular personal consumer loan, I mean not policy, but an account is reaches maturity.
Then it's supposed to end.
When it's supposed to end?
Yeah.
No,
Thank you.
maturity has different meanings depending on what the context is. What type of account are we talking about?
Like sometimes we'll have accounts whereas it would say that this account has met its maturity date or something.
Is this a loan account?
This is a loan account.
Okay, the maturity date for a loan account is the last month in which the loan is due. Let's say you get a 2-year loan today. Will mature 2 years from today, which will be what? April of 2020 what?
23.
Yeah, April 2023. That would be considered your maturity date.
Oh, so it's the account actually is saying that this account's supposed to be completed on that date.
Absolutely. And that date is called the maturity date. That's when it matures. That's when it's due to be completed.
Thank you so much.
Okay, it's a very important concept. Glad you raised it. All right. So those persons who will follow up have to be specified in the collection policy. Not everybody should be calling customers because not everybody is trained to do it. Not everybody has the personality to do it. Not everybody has the knowledge to do it. You cannot ask the cleaning lady to do it while you have lunch and all that because she or he is going to say the wrong thing. They don't know what they're talking. They don't know what's going on. You can't, or a junior officer who's just started delinquency. They might do some soft calls for a couple of bucks, but they can't be calling those hardcore customers who are going to make their lives a living hell. And they don't have the experience and the skill to deal with the responses they get from customers. Okay? All of these things should be policy driven. And of course, whoever's responsible in the organization, primarily in the collections department, for certain things, like for example, if a customer needs a payment plan in order to catch up on delinquency, not any and everybody in the department should be making that decision. The head of collections, the manager, should be making that decision, as well as any repayment schedules, any settlements, and any outsourcing to collection agencies. All of these things should be done by a senior person or a manager or senior collector in the organization. And however that decision is taken, it should be written down in the policy so that everybody is clear. Those who've been there a long time, those who've been there a while, and those who've just gotten there. That's the beauty of having a policy. It keeps everybody on the same page so that not everybody will not be doing their own thing. Okay? Like, don't worry about it, just do what I say, their own thing. And then you read the policy and say, but Mr. Jones, the policy says, I don't care about the policy, just do what I say. Right? Who in charge here? But policy. Put that policy back and do what I say. Should you put the policy back? And do what Mr. Jones said?
Not at all. I stay getting cussed
Oh, you know about that stuff.
all day, every day.
Good. That's okay. Let them cuss you out. You keep working with the policy. You could work with Mr. Jones too, but you know the policy says. And if the policy's position is clear, then Mr. Jones has to be reminded as well But sometimes even persons who've been around a long time have to be reminded about what the policy requirements are. Because sometimes they start to feel like God and think that only what they say matters. They forget about the policy.
And then, you have sometime that people advance the policy for certain customers. When they call back, they'd be like, but so and so did it for me last time. And
Absolutely.
that's when a problem comes in.
Absolutely.
They
Thank
thinking it's personal against them.
Absolutely. So the other thing is the policy is the standard. If you, as a senior manager, collector, or whatever the case might be, decides to bend the policy or do something out of policy on an exception basis, you must say clearly to the customer, even put it in writing if necessary, that this is an exception. We're doing this only because your husband has walked out on you and you have 15 children and we're trying to help, whatever the reason. By the way, do people still have 15 children?
Too
No?
expensive for that.
Too expensive for
Too
one child?
expensive. I have 3 and I feel that's a lot. Nobody's have them that share no more.
No, no, not anymore, except if you were live in a poor country like India, Africa, where there's nothing to eat. They seem to have more children. People have food to eat. It's a strange phenomenon. Uh, but nevertheless, it exists. But yeah, okay, we don't do that stuff in the Bahamas anymore. We used to back in the day. All right. So yeah, I think I've made the point about the policy being a critical document. Again, for those of you who work for organizations and have not looked at your policy in a while or at all, sneak it home take it off the shelf, blow it off, sneak it home in your bag one weekend or something if you don't want anybody to see you reading it. Because sometimes when people see you reading it, like they look at you get upset for some reason. Like, what are you reading the policy? You don't have work to do? And the answer is, yeah, you have work to do, but you should still know what the policy says. And sometimes folks don't want you to know what the policy says. But that's another issue beyond the scope of this particular session. All right. So policy should have targets, but let's look at the objectives first of all. Generally, most collection activities should have two basic objectives. One, to collect as much money as possible during the month or quarter, which is based on your target, and then to try and reduce your overdues to a minimum. The reason why we say minimum is because you never get everybody to pay everything that's delinquent. Never, ever, ever. It just doesn't happen. But the objective is to try and reduce your delinquency to a minimum amount outstanding each month so that the company can collect as much money as possible on a regular basis. Remember, a lot of this money you're collecting as delinquents goes towards the profit and, more importantly, the cash flow of the company. Okay? So when you're collecting that money, you're not just collecting money for the hell of it because somebody gave you a job to do it. That money is critical to the day-to-day functions of the company because they use that to pay bills. By the way, in case you didn't know, right? This collections thing is no joke. And if it were not for effective, consistent collection activity, a lot of companies would be in trouble, and many of them are, because some of them have terrible collection activity, and therefore they don't get any money in. And after a while, they start feeling it in their bank books, in their bank accounts. And soon, if you don't do something about the delinquency problem to get your money back, you will soon eventually be out of business. It's quite as simple as that. Okay? No rocket science. All right, so those are the two objectives. And we already talked about targets, why we set them. One, to measure performance, and secondly, for self-discipline. Okay? For some people, they need to be disciplined. They need something to keep them on track. The targets will help to keep them on track. They know what their objectives are. They know what they have to meet potentially. And so they don't have to figure it out. They don't have to take any shortcuts. It's already outlined for them. And so they can plan how they're going to meet those targets. And to plan those kinds of things requires significant amount of self-discipline. Okay? So don't let me get you stuck in those questions. Next week, I will ask you questions like that, just to make sure you know what the rules and the targets and objectives are. Okay? That's a hint. All right. So Anyone? What are the three basic rules of follow-up in any collection environment? What are the three basic rules of follow-up? Number one,
Collections are a continuous cycle.
Continuous cycle.
that's a
Do
nice,
not, do
that's a
not
nice
waste
false question.
time on dead accounts, yes, postmortem.
And account postmortems, yeah. If you know if nothing is gonna happen that month because Susie cussed you out 3 times and had the phone, chances are you probably should leave that until next month, see what happens, depending on who Susie is and what you know about Susie. Okay? Don't waste time on them. If you call them once or twice and they're not responding, depending on that account, especially if they have a history of paying late, you may want to put that into the
Stress yourself.
yeah, because you know Susie's gonna pay you. She just will pay you late around a certain time. There's some people like that. That's why you have just like KYC, know your customer, to know your delinquent customers. KYDC, about that. All right. And the more you work them, the more you know who they are, whether you like it or not, because they will let themselves be known. Good customers, you hardly know their names even, because they always pay ahead of time. Have any issues with them. You can always tell marginal and bad customers. We know who they are, we know where they live, we know their names, we know their family relations, we know everything. Because we have to keep calling them and fighting with them about their delinquency for whatever reason. Right? And if you've ever worked in delinquency, you would know that the reasons are countless. What's the third rule?
Carry shortfall over to new period.
Yeah, so we have a target of 40 accounts and we only got to 30 by the end of the month. Don't lose any sleep. Once you can show a productive 30 accounts, then the other 10 accounts carry on over into your new target. Simple as that. And if you take that approach, those three approaches, uh, you'll find that the rule works very well. If you violate those three approaches, you'll find that you'll be working, but you'll be a little more miserable and a little less productive as you do it. Okay? So you don't have to believe those rules that I've given you, but if you do believe them and you do practice them, you'll find that your collections life will turn around almost overnight, right? Because of those rules. So how do we prepare for our activity to collect? Well, there's some basic things we do. Now, do we do this like every time we call before we call an account? No, we just learn it and we know it by heart. Right? But the point we're trying to make here, if you're into delinquency, please plan it. Don't just grab off the phone without a plan. Look at your customer profile and find out who is this customer, have they worked it before, how do they pay, did they give me any special instructions about getting their payment because they work for government, they're on pension. We need to move the thing forward for the month because NIB pays twice in for November for both months and all that, whatever the case might be. All right, it requires planning. Some collectors do not plan. They just pick up the phone, call, start arguing with the customer, rowing, fussing. Anybody knows what arguing is?
Yes.
Well, what is arguing?
Rowan.
Yeah, that's another relation. Yeah, rowing, doggone it. Uh, yeah, that's Bahamianese for arguing. You know? Somehow during the history in the old days, we heard the Brits, former colonial masters say, the arguing is profound. And then so to us, it sounded like arguing. So we came up with our own version of it. And that's how dialect works. Right? Now, nobody else in the world knows what arguing is, only Bahamians. And some Bahamians don't know anymore, interestingly enough. All right. So collection planning then should be done. If you're in collections, you might be an expert. And if you're an expert, you don't have to plan as meticulously because you know these steps. You don't have to follow them step by step as it is here, but you know that these are the things you should be doing, no matter who you are in delinquency. Okay? And again, which step becomes the step that depends on the experience level of the collector, the person whom they're calling, the circumstances of that delinquent account, and so on. But generally speaking, every collector should first seek to identify the problem with that account. When you pick it up, before you call the customer, if you don't know, ask yourself, what is the problem with this account? And you might see there are numerous problems. They lost their job. They're getting divorced. They lost a child. Pandemic, post-pandemic, third wave, whatever the reasons are. All right, identify the problem, because if you could somehow identify the problem, it's easier to try and help the customer fix it. Okay, very important. Just like in a relationship or marriage, if there's a discourse or disagreement or misunderstanding, the sooner you identify the problem, the sooner you resolve it without getting a divorce or harassing each other or worse. But it's important to identify the problem. Same thing in delinquency. Once you identify the problem, says, okay, what can I do to break this down so that I can help this customer solve the problem and help my company? Okay, so you break it down into little pieces. If they're getting a divorce, you say, well, who's going to be taking over the payment? Will you continue to pay as a couple even though you're divorced? Whose account is the payment going to come from? The one who works for government or the one who doesn't, and so on. This is what we mean by breaking the problem down in controllable parts. So that by the time you call this customer, you have a clear idea of what's going on and what you plan to do and what you'd like to suggest to them. Okay. Step 3, set targets for yourself. We already talked about that. It's for discipline and performance measures. And for discipline, especially, keep you on the straight and narrow. And then, of course, step 4 is to establish an action plan. Tell yourself what you're going to do in order to achieve trying to collect that account and every single other account that you have to collect. Because these plans apply to every account. Again, the more experienced you are, you don't have to go step by step as it is here, but you will go through these processes one way or the other if you expect to get the job done well. Okay? And then, of course, stage 5, monitor the results. Excuse me 1 second. Don't go away. Hello. Sorry. I'm sorry. You have to say it again. I think you have the wrong number. No problem. Hello, you guys still there?
Yes, sir.
Did you hear that? Yeah, she called me and says, hello, this is Marcos. I'm calling for directions. I'm like, I don't recall ordering a pizza. Wrong number. Anything could happen in collection. Okay. And then the final step or stage is what? What is the final step in the collections planning process?
Monitor the results.
Does anybody know what monitor results mean? What do you think that means?
Meaning all the work that you put in, let's see how it plays out. If the client is going to pay, if they're going to come in, like based on your follow-up and analysis, how things play out.
To see what you accomplished.
Following up with the customer.
Really good. I couldn't put it better myself. That's exactly what monitoring is about. And those who do that well and do it regularly will be far more successful in our job as collectors than those who don't. A lot of collectors are lazy. They don't want to do all the monitoring work to check and follow up on things. They just do the basic and leave it there and see what happens and let the situation catch up with them. Monitors do not do that. Monitors keep checking the situation until it is completely resolved. Okay? And all of these things, again, is what makes the whole process of collections an exciting job. If somebody says that the collections is not exciting, it's probably because they're not doing it properly. They're not doing a lot of these things that we're talking about. They're just sticking to the basic, pick up the phone, call the person, tell them what their balance is, and whatever the person tells them, say thank you and hang up. That could be cause for a very boring type of job in collections. But if you're doing these things, like you have your customers properly rated from A to E, and you have a plan to check out what's really going on with that client, and your goal is to monitor what work you've done to see if the customer is following through, and if you need to make any further changes in order to get the customer to pay. See, that is what makes it very interesting. I know not every collector agrees with me, but that's still the truth. All right, the two key steps in the preparation, in the process. Interesting. Uh, these two steps in the collection planning process, in terms of preparing, after we've gone through those stages and organized ourselves, these two steps are very crucial. And a lot of delinquency problems come about because collectors either don't know about them, they don't follow them, or they don't follow them sufficiently and completely. Right? And so I am going to highlight these two steps that you should always be keeping in mind as you go through the collections process. First of all, always be thinking about documentation. Remember, if you do a collection activity and you don't record it properly, it never happened. Doesn't matter what you said, but I remember in my head. Nobody cares what's in your head. You have to write it down. You have to document it. Okay? If you need statements and accounts and invoices to support any transaction, you have to get them. It's telling somebody as a collections officer, delinquency officer, well, I was gone. That's not good enough. They need to be on the file. Okay? Aged accounts. Anybody knows what aged accounts are?
The I guess the ones with
All
people
account.
going on
Yes,
and past the
dormant
maturity date.
Yeah, accounts that are past the maturity date, 30 days past due, 60, 90, 120, and beyond. Those are what we call aged accounts. And any collector worth his or her grits should have aged accounts so they can see what the delinquency levels are, who falls in those categories, how many people, and so on. Okay? These are all part of the documentation process. These are the tools of the collector. All right? The papers that collectors must always have around them somewhere. Otherwise, you're not going to be as effective as you should. Okay? And then the final document that you should be, these are not exhaustive, these are the key ones. All right? Whatever statements you have, they have to be what? What's the important thing about statements in your file?
Documented.
Well, a little more than that. It's right there. It's the
Up
statements.
Up to
accurate and
date,
timely.
up to date.
Let's put
Accurate.
accurate and timely.
Yeah, up to date, accurate, and timely.
Timely.
Okay? The worst thing you can do is call a customer and their account is up to date and you think it's not because you didn't check it. And then the customer says, I was already in there. Now you calling me, but my account up to date. Get and check it and call me back or even go to the manager or something. So that kind, not checking that stuff for accuracy and completeness and all that stuff can be a problem. It's all part of the documentation process. Before you call the customer, know that you are clear on the status of
Yeah. I should be dotted and T's crossed because some people actually know the stuff inside and out. So when you come off step and they can smell that.
course. Okay. And for those who don't know, you have to do it for their sake because you don't want to put them to unnecessary pain and suffering in their ignorance. Right? So it's a very important job, this thing about documentation. Right? And the other important part of the collections process is recording, writing stuff down and writing the correct stuff down. Because sometimes people write stuff down and they just write gobbledygook, or what they write down is not enough, or what they write down is not relevant, or what they write down in the collections documents or in the computer is not even relevant. Okay? So there are some key things for collectors to write down when you are done with your collections process and your documentation collection. You must use the following information and record it every single time for every single customer. For every customer and every time, you must have the customer's name and address somewhere on the delinquency follow-up file. You must have their telephone contact, all of them, home, cell, work, spouse, extras, Rover, all of them that you can get. All right. Where applicable, you must have the account number so you can have a source of reference. You can go into the system and check their position quickly before you call them. Okay? Nothing is more embarrassing than calling a customer say they passed you and the customer says, no way. Go check your facts. Okay? Whenever you dealt with the customer, you have to put the date that you did. We call that date and an amount of action taken. You have to write down what you did and when you did it. Very important. If you don't write it down, it never happened. You must say what type of action you took. Did you visit the customer? If you did, you have to say, I visited the customer. Did you send a letter? Then say you sent a letter. If you call them on the phone, you said, I telephoned. But you have to say. And you have to say the date, because the date is important. The type of contact action is important. Okay? Name of the contact person, the reason why that is there, because the contact person is not always the customer. If it is the customer, then you say contact the customer. But if you call and somebody else answers the phone and you talk to them, you have to put the name of the person and relationship, if possible, who you spoke with, since they were not the customer. Okay, that happens. And of course, you have to write the results. I telephone customer for payment, they abruptly hang up the phone after cussing me out, full stop. Whatever they do, you have to put it in the notes. Whatever they say, you have to write it in the notes in brief form. So anytime you pick it up, you know what happened. If something happens to you and another collector picks it up, they can see right away what was the last thing you did. Okay? And how successful or unsuccessful you were. You have to write in the results. Period. Some collectors are lazy, they don't want to write all that stuff. They take shortcuts. They write the bare minimum. They forget to write in important information. They leave out important information on purpose because if they put it in, then people are going to know something about something else and so on.
Also, Mr. Wilkinson, remember when you mentioned you and Christoph was having a conversation, whereas person starts dealing with court, should
Yes.
you come in and make payments?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So yeah, you remember that conversation. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay. Something to think about. So if you hadn't seen it or known it before, I trust you have already in these last hour and a half already of seeing how dynamic the world of delinquency is, should, and can be. Okay? By all means. Um, Not only that, this stuff is helpful not only for your job, but somebody might owe you money. And now you have a few more techniques that you could use to see if they'll pay you back. Good luck with that, especially if they're a family member. Family members are famous for not wanting to pay loans back to family members that they borrow money from for some strange reason. It's been around far too long. All right. So what do we do next? Well, there is a discussion in the delinquency world these days about computerized reports. In the old days, when I was a collector many decades ago, we did everything manually. We had loan cards, and at the back we had some little white piece of paper with lines on them. We clip it onto the back of the loan card, the general ledger card where we posted all the payments, and any collection activity we made, we wrote it in using the same information I just mentioned. Any field calls we made to go out to visit, we write it in, we say where we went, why, what happened, what the result is, did we get money, do we not, what did the customer promise, all that stuff we wrote in manually at the back of these general ledger cards that contain the customer account details. All right. Nowadays, you guys have the computer. You can go into Word or some other document or some other software and actually do some of these things. Okay. Here, we are looking at the different types of reports and documentation that collectors should have in their file on each customer. And the reason why these are important so that they provide a point of access for you to be able to get information and report it in quickly. If the customer has any questions and it's not online, you can go into your computerized reports and files and respond to the customer. Okay? Very important stuff, information, and it should be maintained either manually or electronically in this case, for every single customer. All right. Notice the master file for the customer is the file that contains everything, whether it's electronic or manual. Right? The master file should contain things like mailing addresses, customer account numbers, and any verifications that we did on the customer for employment, residence, or whatever else the case might be. It's called a verification log. Right? All of these things should be in the master file. Debit and credit memos for goods returned one way or the other, and refunds, any documentation about any of that stuff should be in the file. The whole idea is, at the end of the day, you shouldn't have to be hunting around for the information on the customer. Everything should be in the file, period. Okay? Account balances, aging reports, all right, any forecasting as to how the customer will pay you back based on the schedule that they gave you and you agreed upon. All of these things should be in the file so that anybody, anytime picking up that file, will see in detail what's going on with a particular customer. Again, a lot of delinquent people are not aware of this stuff. A lot of organizations do not promote this kind of detail. And then there's some persons who are actually trying to do some of the stuff. I guarantee you, if you do some of this stuff, or all of this, generally in one form or another, your success in collections will be far greater than if you just wing it. Right? Any collection notices and letters that you send to the customer, you have to keep a copy that goes into the file as well. So when it's time to contact the customer, you can say, hey, we already sent you 7 reminders. You didn't respond to 1. We're moving to the collection agency now. And if that doesn't work, then we'll be moving to the lawyers for legal action. Okay? And then what else goes in the file? The payment history of the customer. Print it off, put it in the file. So you have easy access. Okay? Credit limits for the customer, that should be on the file. So anytime it comes up, you pull out the file in the relevant section and you can see right away how to respond. If you do not do that kind of stuff, whether computerized or manual, then when the customer raises questions, complaints, and concerns, you will be running to and fro trying to find the information. Okay? And God forbid, sometimes you're not as successful as you'd like to be because of the level of disorganization or the non-existence of those things that we just talked about. Okay. All right, now we get to what we call the interesting, some the collectors call it the juicy part of collections, because from time immemorial, collectors have always been trying to figure out and analyzing the problem. What are the reasons for non-payment by customers? Okay, what are the reasons? Why don't customers pay? Well, I have found over the years 4 categories as to why customers don't pay. And oftentimes I've thrown out a challenge to my students. If you can come up with a 5th one that doesn't fall within the first 4 that I have, I'll buy you lunch at Great Clip. Are they open? Is Great Clip open?
Oh, I ain't sure. I really like my hotspot.
Yes, it is. I was just there on Saturday. It is
Great Clip is
open to
open.
the public.
You were there on Saturday?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but who am I talking to?
Sophia.
Sophia. I need you to send me all of your details so when you go into Great Clip again, I can just follow you around and tell them I'm your son or something.
All right.
They're not going to believe me, but anyway, that's really cool.
Yeah, and the food is really good.
It is.
Top of the line, the best cum chowder. They got the best fruit punch, the best fresh lemonade. They're good.
Yeah, they are. Are they still expensive though, Sophia?
I didn't hear.
Are they still expensive?
No, it wasn't too bad.
Isn't too bad?
No.
Man, many
I think they changed now with the climate.
Oh, COVID has gotten hold of them.
Yes.
For sure.
Mr. Wilkinson, you should also try
Kaima
Kaima too.
Try who?
Kaima. That's a
Oh,
new restaurant. It's really nice.
where is that?
Kaima, it's kind of if you're heading for the Laifiki area.
That's my foot. That already sounds like it's out of my league. How
No,
do you spell it?
Kyma.
Kyma.
It's a nice outside dining restaurant. Nothing too is they're not too expensive. The highest you'll pay is $58 for steak.
$15?
58, 58.
58? Guess like okay. Where is that? Where is that Kyma? Where is that exactly?
You know where Fresh Market is, like when you're heading down from Fresh Market or from Laifiki.
There's a fresh market in Laifiki now.
It's in the same plaza, eh?
Yeah.
The plaza where Fresh Market is. That's it.
Not in that plaza. You love to drive down in that same proximity, but you love to drive down to our next plaza. I think they have the
You
new
pass the
furniture
roundabout?
store.
Wait.
No, you going too far. You know where the new furniture is? I think you call Bed and Bath or
Yeah.
It's in that plaza there.
Oh, okay.
And they have a new restaurant opening too. It's an Asian restaurant opening next to that too.
Oh, all right.
It's a nice hangout spot.
Is this anywhere near where the food store used to be in Laifiki?
No, you too far.
No, you too far. You too far. You gotta
Past
drive
Fresh
all the way
Market?
down.
Well, the only fresh market I know is on Blue Hill Road.
No, they have Fresh Market, not Solomon's Fresh Market.
I didn't know that.
Not Solomon's. That's not Solomon's. What they name? Yes, that's Solomon's, eh?
Okay.
I think so.
I'm on Laifiki Road heading for where the food store used to be.
And then you keep driving. You too far. You almost by Laifiki if you all the way up there, entrance. But you're gonna keep driving all the way past. Let me see. What other the bank? You know where Commonwealth Bank is?
And the roundabout.
Yes, you're gonna keep driving past there until you're gonna see another plaza past that area, past the Solomon's Fresh area where the gas station them is.
Left hand side or right side?
That'd be the right hand side.
Okay.
So you're gonna keep driving down when you pass the gas station,
Right.
and then you can see there's a new furniture store. I think it's called, I can't remember exactly. It's a Bed and Bath. They sell furnitures and stuff. It's a really nice. I think it's a new development.
Okay.
It's really nice though.
And when I get there, what do I do?
Just go in. I mean, you'll have to just go in.
I mean, the restaurant is right there where the Bed and Bath is?
No, yeah. I mean, it's on the next side. It's adjacent to it.
Okay, so it's opposite the Bed and Bath.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in the same plaza, but it's adjacent to the Bed and Bath building.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I just have to think about that $58 steak a little bit longer.
No, you don't have to go to the steak. I just telling you your price range.
I
Because
know.
that steak was good though.
I know it was good. I've had it in my lifetime. I just don't make a habit out of it. But my wife, I have to watch her all the time because every time we take her somewhere exotic, she never hires anything, never orders anything on the low end. I think for some reason I look like Brent Simmons or someone.
No,
Or,
man. I believe if you work hard, you should treat yourself every once in a while. I just took my husband there on Saturday and he really enjoyed it.
Kiss my foot.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna cruise down there and see what's kicking. On a good day, not no regular bloody day. Okay, sounds good. Never heard about timeout. But I'll tell you, the reason why I ask about Great Cliff because the last time I went to Great Cliff was decades ago when things were kicking when I was dating my wife. Just me. I hardly made anywhere near the money I made since then, but I was trying to impress her, I guess, once. Man, and I went in, I said, we're going to Great Cliff. Mind you, as she said, the food is great, was then, still is. The only problem is they gave me a little small cup of coffee. All the food was like little bits of food with little green things on the side. It tasted great, but it's not somewhere where you go to like feel like you've eaten, you just go there for the
He was
ambience.
hungry.
I
He was
concur.
hungry.
'Cause when my wife take me to Grey Cliff for a
Yeah,
birthday event,
yeah,
they
all kinds of money
they
from
turn they not Grey Cliff, out Compass Point. You
Top
could
of the
tell
leg.
they
Oh,
they
Compass
turn the
Point.
they turn the cup upside down and just lift it up, one little cup, and then the rice is there. I say, man, you better go on the old Andres now. Oh, I'm just giving away food. They used to get two snapper. I guess since COVID, they didn't have one snap in the plate now.
Top of the list do that too though.
But
Top of the
oh,
list give you
I
good
ain't-
much food.
I asked them, but I have more plate than food.
it isn't about food, it's about the ambience.
No, the
But
ambience. I could watch
you
that.
pay for that
I could
ambience.
Google ambience. I don't need that. I could get Andres and Google ambience.
No
I,
man. Mr. Wilkinson, you ever made my sapatilla?
yeah, I drove past many times. Yes, because I know what you mean. They have that great lift thing going on.
They
But
ain't that serious to me.
I promise that when the doggone thing is over and we don't have to do all this crazy stuff, I am gonna go in there. And now I have Keimer.
Oh no, when you go by sapatilla, you have to take a little bit of extra change with you.
I know.
I mean a whole lot, a little bit extra more.
Oh, I heard. That's why I keep driving past it rather than turning in.
You know, I can tell you all something else. I don't know what this place name. We was in Margate, but I guess my wife is testing me. Some place like Ricky would have this movies or something. I saw the menu.
Yeah, I know. I know
Honestly,
what you mean.
You mean Island House?
I
Island
know the
House?
name because I didn't even care no more. I see the menu. The lowest thing on the menu was $50 a meal. Like
Island House.
I say,
You
mess
never been there?
you. I say, I know what you're trying to do. You ain't crazy, so you trying to see if I crazy enough to take you there. I say,
Yeah,
Oh, God.
it's very expensive.
All
And
right, let's continue. Time is limited.
who said that?
This is Sophia, because you tell me test next week. So we need to cover the stuff in the next hour.
Doggone it. Sophia, spoil everything.
She's straightforward. Yes, Sophia, I agree.
Let's stay focused. Let's stay focused.
Yes, Mr. Wilkinson. No more restaurant.
More restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly more exciting than this bloody delinquency. Okay.
Because on a reason for payment by customers.
Yeah, I was saying that I've come up with 4 reasons why customers do not pay. Okay. The first reason is because they are not able to pay. We call it inability. They can't pay. Why? Because they're unemployed. They're sick. They're dead. Those are reasons why customers will not pay you under any conditions. Now you might say, well, if they're unemployed, they should find somebody to pay. We don't operate on them finding somebody. Not not when we lend money. When we lend money to the customer. If somebody co-sign, that's different. Then we call them. If they get somebody to help them, fine. We won't refuse it. But our concern is with the customer. So if the customer is unemployed, they don't have the ability to pay anymore. If they make another provision, fine. But that has nothing to do with their ability to pay. For lending and collections purposes, you're becoming unemployed means you are unable to pay. Does that mean you can't get money from elsewhere? Hell no, you could keep it, borrow it, whatever, borrow, steal, run off it, whatever, and pay it. But for our purposes, you're unable to pay. If you're sick, same principle. You can't go to work. You have money saved and you can pay while you're sick, fine. That's not what we're talking about. You can't pay because you're not well. And of course, if you're dead, then you are unable to pay. So that's the first reason. Second reason, inefficiency. What is inefficiency? Well, whenever companies have poor documentation and record keeping and posting is late and they don't get payments posted on time and calling customers who are not really delinquent and so on, that's what we call inefficient because those are the internal problems that we were talking about earlier. And those internal problems create inefficiency. If you don't get the job done, well, if you're going through a computer change and converting from one system to the next, that's a big old problem. That will create inefficiency during the process and all kinds of problems because accounts will be wrong, numbers will be wrong, people's money will be in the wrong accounts and so on potentially. That creates inefficiency. Okay. Staff shortages is an inefficiency. Why? Because you don't have enough people to call customers effectively. Because some people have left, they're sick, they're on honeymoon, whatever the case might be. Any staff shortages will create inefficiencies in the organization. And anytime you have inefficiencies in the organization, that's going to create reasons for customers not to pay, if only by default. Okay? Because, for example, some customers will do this. Mrs. Jones, I'm calling about your payment for March. And she'll say, you didn't, did you check my account? You said, no, why? Which you should have done. She said, because if you had checked my account, Sonny, you would have seen that I was in there today on my lunch hour to make the payment. So I know why you calling me. Go check. See, like that. That's an inefficiency. And sometimes when you do that to customers, they get angry, and next time the payment comes around, they pay later just to make you miserable. All right. So that's the second reason. Third reason is dissatisfaction. If a customer asks you to do something, you don't resolve it, then they don't pay until you resolve it. You want my money? Fix my problem, then I'll pay you. Until then, I ain't paying nothing, is what they'll tell you. Okay? And that's what we refer to in delinquency as dissatisfaction. The worst thing you want to do is have a dissatisfied delinquent customer. They'll make your life a living hell. And the dissatisfaction doesn't have to come from you. It can come from some other source. It's just that once they're dissatisfied, they're dissatisfied. And if you're the one who calls next, you get it next. How about that? Doesn't matter if you're not the problem. That's just how people are. And delinquents function from time to time. And then finally, we have the deliberate policy where borrowers decide when they'll pay. Despite the payment date, you tell them the payment date is many times, but they pay whenever they feel like, because their policy is deliberate. All right? They'll pay you when they're ready, and nothing is going to change that. You could call as many times as you want. And so between the four of these things, you are not going to be paid by your customers. So my challenge to all of my students is this. If Can you come up with a fifth one that doesn't fall in there? A fifth reason for non-payment?
Death,
It's not going to be.
That's number one.
death.
Death is number
Oh,
one.
that's the end of, oh, sorry. Okay.
That's a good try, though.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy.
I see it there. I mean, it wouldn't be inability. It means they decide they ain't paying at all no more if they relocate.
Relocate. Where would relocation fall? Let's say,
Yeah, the contra accounts. What that is? Contra, I missed that. What contra accounts?
I'll mention what contra accounts are after we determine what relocation. Which category does relocation fall in? Because people relocate from time to time for real.
I think I'll fall under deliberative. Because no boy. No,
No,
because even if they
normally
relocate,
when
they
people
can set up
relocate,
something.
they don't pay. They could pay, but normally when you see people relocate, they ain't have no intention of paying no more. Some people do, but that's a small percentage versus who actually do.
Which of the four categories do they fall in?
Deliberative?
Yeah, deliberate policy, absolutely. Okay. While I remember, please change deliberative to deliberate for me. It reads better. Take out the IV and just leave it as deliberate policy. So yeah, relocations are deliberate policy. That means they're moving. And in many cases, most people when they move, they think that their debt has gone away somewhere, even though it hasn't. So definitely would fall under number 4.
Yeah, I see. Like most Bahamians now too. Like people have dual citizenship and stuff like that. They gone back home and they done run up something. Because or they gone.
Even without dual citizenship, just leave. They meet.
Yeah, you're right.
They get married and stay. They overstay their time and stay. They running from their loan and stay. Whatever the reason is. All right. Contra accounts, what we call offsetting accounts. For example, if somebody owes you $50 and you owe them $75. Should you be calling them for payment if you owe them 75?
Say that again?
You somebody owes you 50 and you owe them 75. Should you be calling them if you owe 75?
Oh, no, sir. No.
No. You should offset it, right? In other words, if I owe you 50 and you owe me 75, I shouldn't be calling you for my 75. I should say, since I owe you 50, I'll take that out and and you can pay me
You
the
mean
difference.
25?
Yeah, that's what contra means. One account offsetting the other one. The only problem is in practice, sometimes it gets confusing. The more we keep offsetting, and some people, if you don't have proper records, you won't be able to tell who owes who what. You follow?
Yeah, I mean, if you mean you mean what in terms of collateral, if you holding something, you could just
No, no, no,
make.
no. Let's say you are a retailer and
Mm-hmm.
credit to a company,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they give credit to you for a certain amount. And then you give credit to them for certain, and you keep offsetting. You're not paying anything. You just,
Oh, okay, 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 okay.
okay? And then at some point at the end of the month, you decide to settle. So whoever owes the other one the most, then that one should pay whatever they owe.
Yeah.
Okay?
Instead of keep playing ping pong.
Yeah, instead of you give me an invoice for everything I owe, and I give you so you just offset it, and then whatever the difference is, who owes the higher amount pays that difference. That's what we mean by offsetting. So we have to be careful with delinquent customers that we don't fall into that situation in any way, and then it's hard to determine actually what they actually owe because you're not really keeping track, especially those companies that continue to do this stuff manually. All right, could become a problem. All right, so those are the four reasons. I think you figured out by now that that question will be on the test. It's too important not to put. Not that anything else is unimportant. I guess that's another hint. All right. What are the three methods of follow-up that every delinquent, every collections officer should know? What are they?
Visits,
Visit
telephone, and
telephone,
letters.
letters.
Visits, telephone, and letters. Each of them should happen in one order or the other order, depending on the business you're in. You might visit first, call and write, or you might write, call, and visit. That would depend on your policy and your clientele, who is delinquent. Okay, so let's look at the visit first. Notice the criteria for credit visits when you're going out to visit a business client or even an individual. This kind of refers to the business client who owes you money. Remember, I already said credit and collections is not only for financial institutions. People still think so. It is not so. All right. If you're selling tools and you sell your tools on credit, then you're giving credit. If you tell the guy you sell the tools for my invoice is for 30 days, I expect you to pay me in 30 days, then you've given him credit. Because if he's not paying now, you've given him credit. And you're not a bank, you're a retailer. And this is why it's important to know that credit collections extends beyond financial institutions. So when they fire you for the bank and you get tired working for a bank or financial institution, you can go elsewhere and still do credit and make some good money too because of that knowledge. All right. So when you decide to make a credit visit to a client, for example, you don't go there cursing and shouting as the creditor, even though they owe you money, because that will not improve relationship to go there with a good attitude, even though they're the ones who didn't pay you. Okay. You're trying to get them or persuade them to pay you. So you want to approach them with a good attitude and all your facts, your invoices, payment history, and so on. So any questions they ask you, you have it right in front of you, either on a file or on your phone these days, or your laptop, depending on what it is. All right, so you go there all chippy with all your facts. If the customer has any queries, number two, identify them, tell the customer what they are, to tell you what they are. If they're upset about something about the organization, that's why they didn't pay you, tell them you need to tell you so you could fix it and then they can pay you. Because a lot of customers, remember, if they're dissatisfied, they'll use that as an excuse not to pay. Buy some time, why not? While you're trying to fix that problem, they have time to collect the money from somewhere and eventually pay you, hopefully. All right, and God forbid if you get really lucky on that visit, you may collect a check. And if your luck is not good, they might tell you we don't have any check ready for you. Please come back in a week. We're not ever happy when we have to go back without a check, especially when we get to visiting and driving and being nice and all that stuff, and then they finally tell you they still can't pay you right then. Some of us get lucky, they give us a post-dated check. So even though we don't get immediate cash, we do have a post-dated check, which is a promise that the payment will be processed via that check in a week or two or whatever the case might be. Okay. So that's typically what your visit should look like. All right, for sure. And also the visit should have certain characteristics. The person who does the visit should be a sociable, friendly person. That doesn't mean friendly in a way that you're a pushover. It just means that you don't go to your delinquent customer with a bad attitude. If they're delinquent, they probably already upset about something anyway. So a bad attitude to collect the payment will not help you oftentimes. Okay? Be diplomatic. Speak to your delinquent customer professionally. Let them
Might
feel,
also cause you to get beat up too.
of course, let's not forget the beat up part. Because some people are not predictable. All right. And you don't know. You may never have that in your experience, but other people have had it in their experiences. People are not predictable. And if, as a collective, goes an attitude, that could result in a physical altercation, especially if that customer is a male. Okay? You might want to take that attitude with a female, and the worst she'll do is probably give you a big cuss job or something. But the guy is not going to necessarily give you a big cuss job. He might actually jump in your face and physically attack you if you go too far with your collect, your unsociable, unfriendly attitude, even though they owe you money. Remember, they may owe some other people money too and be very stressed. Plus, they may be stressed about other things. Their bestest gal left them, they lost their job. You'd be surprised. All right, so when you make that visit, make sure you keep these things in mind. Be patient, be flexible. If the customer says, hey, I can't pay all now, can we make a deal, an arrangement? Um, then you should be open to it, especially if the customer seems genuine and interested and trying to make an arrangement. Okay, be flexible. Don't go there and say, wait, your payment is 500. I don't want 499, man. I want the whole 500 and stuff like this. That's fine if the customer can pay, but if they say, hey, I only have half, will you take that? You don't say, I, I just tell you I want a half. I drive all the way down here and I keep my time up. You don't with half, dude. No, we don't want to do that. If they say they can only pay half, take the half, thank them, find out when they're going to pay the other half. So when you get back in your report, you can write it up carefully and completely. That's how these things are done when you go out to visit clients. Okay? And of course, as usual, if they have any queries, resolve them quickly. If you don't have the information in your file, call the office from there and have somebody check it so you can resolve their problem quickly. Don't let the customer hold a problem with your organization over your head and keep them from paying you and creating bad blood. It's already enough of a problem trying to collect the money. Okay? So whatever they say their problem is, deal with it and do it quickly, not whenever you feel like it. Like stinking delinquent customer. I'm not doing it. He'll have to wait till I'm ready. You do that, might set yourself up and make it even more difficult with that customer to collect outstanding money. Okay? So there you have it. That's your visit, but it's not over. When it's time to visit, don't just jump up and start driving like some delinquent people, like some collection officers do. They jump in the car just to get out and start driving, don't plan anything. They know the amount that overdue is, and that's all they're going to say. Excuse me, overdue amount is. Well, that's not good enough. And sometimes our delinquent customers are fairly sophisticated. They may be high up in the organization that you visit. So you need to be able to deal with them appropriately. And then other customers are kind of down the education scale. You can't come off with that bumpy, sophisticated, educated response. That's going to annoy them. Like they send this dude down to me with talking funny, like he ain't no bohemian and thing. But you know, like don't try to show me up or payment. So you kind of come on if you change your language again a little bit. So that and you're like, man, does a collections officer have to be schizophrenic? Sort of. Not completely, but you have to be able to adapt. All right. So don't just jump in your car when there's a visit. All right. Do it in stages. Plan it. Make an appointment. Call them. Tell them you're coming unless you don't want them to know you're coming. But sometimes when people know you're coming, what do? And
He'll give you a story when you reach out, they don't be there.
they disappear. And when you get there, they're not there. So you have to know who to call and who not to call. Some customers, they appreciate that you call, and when you reach, they're right there waiting for you patiently. Other customers, you call them, they say, thank God. God is on my side today. Now that he called me, tell him I'm not here. And some of them are there but not there, and some of them physically leave. So by the time you get there, they're not there. But generally make an appointment. Get your facts together before you leave so that any questions you can answer them. Remember, if you can't, you're in trouble. Okay. Phase three, when you get there, be pleasant, introduce yourself, say who you are, where you're from, if they don't know you. Sometimes they'll know you because they've spoken to you before. That may not be your first visit, and so on. All right, so keep these things in mind. And then talk about the problem. Try and get the customer to talk about what their problems are. Why didn't they pay? Remember, identify the problem. All right, and then once you've had your discussion, the customers let it all hang out. Then try and get a commitment from the customer. I notice I didn't say try, I said get a commitment. That's what you really want to do. Get a commitment for the customer to make the payment. Get a commitment for the customer to make half the payment. Get a commitment from the customer to make some of the payment. Get a commitment from the customer that if they're not paying anything at all during that visit, as to when they will make a payment, period. Not try, get a commitment. One way or the other. Do not leave that visit without a commitment from the customer, because visits are time consuming and expensive and sometimes frustrating depending on where you go and who you're dealing with. Okay. And then of course the last phase is to close the visit. And when you get back to the office, write a complete report based on some of the things we discussed earlier and some of the things we'll see in a minute. Okay. Again, whatever report you make after the visit should have the name and positions of everyone you saw. If you met 3 executives, you have to write their names and their positions. If you met 3 plumbers, you have to write their names and their positions and so on. Right? Remember, all your clients will not be sophisticated. Some of them will be regular blue-collar workers, hardworking people, but we still have to treat them the same way in terms of collections activity, in terms of our attitude, our preparation, the whole 9 yards. Okay. And when we go back, our reports must be complete. All right. Why did we visit? What's the purpose? What background information did we get from the client in that discussion that we had? Okay? Did they have any queries or concerns? If yet, what are they? Write them down. You have to write them all down. If they had 5 concerns or problems or queries, you have to write all 5 down. And then you have to say what steps you took to resolve the queries or what steps you plan to take. All right. And then what action you just will be taken with regards to payment. That's why you have to make a payment arrangement with your customer so you can come back in your report and say customer paid the arrears in full, customer paid half, customer paid none, gave me a post-dated check, promised to pay in 2 weeks, whatever it is, has to be written in there. And then finally, a follow-up and review date has to be indicated on your report as well. When do you plan to follow this customer up again? All right. So you see, collections activity is not just what a lot of people think it is. It is a far more sophisticated job than a lot of people even realize, including the people who are doing the job, by the way. All right. So that's your visit. The other option you have is the telephone. Like the visit, don't just pick up the phone and call. Please plan the call. Check the credit file, see what the status is, see what was said the last time by the last person or by you. Do all that stuff before you call the customer. Don't just grab the phone and say, man, I have 50, 25 calls to make today. I just want to get through all 25. That's really not the approach you should take. If you don't get through the 25, then take the rule number 2. Don't cry over spilled milk and postmortem. If you had 25 calls to make today and you only made 20, great. Carry the other 5 over and start them tomorrow. Simple as that. But make those 20 as effective as you can because you plan them and check them. Right? When you call, try to speak to the customer. Sometimes the customers answer the phone. If they think it's you, they'll act like they're not the customer. Mr. Jones there? No, he ain't here. And that's Mr. Jones on the phone. Unless you know Mr. Jones' voice, you may not be able to tell. But despite all those setbacks, try to talk to the customer. If somebody else answers the phone and they say the customer is here but they don't want to talk to you, try to encourage them to come to the phone. Don't tell strangers personal information about your customer. Like, look, that person has passed you by $750. They got to get on this phone. You can't tell the other person that. That's a breach of confidentiality. Even though you might be upset that your customer refuses to come to the phone. But in any event, you have to make every effort to contact the customer, him or herself. If they still don't come to the phone for whatever reason or they're not available, you simply leave a message with your name and your number. Do not get into the details of the customer as a delinquent customer of the organization, and you're really pissed off that they're not there or refusing to answer the call. You're not to get into that stuff at all with any third parties, period. Okay? In the United States and other countries, you can be sued for that almost immediately, especially if you divulge confidential information about the customer's delinquent account. You cannot do that. With certain Bohemians, we do certain things and we let the cattle divide and say, look, your husband is delinquent and you're his wife and you need to come, you need to get him in here to pay. Some of us still do that every now and then. But technically, we shouldn't do that unless the spouse is a co-signature or guarantor. All right. Approach the customer professionally on the phone. You should be sounding pleasant. When you solicit and request a payment, when you're asking for non-payment, you sound professional. Not like you just got up in the morning, somebody got on your nerves, you're pissed off because you have to deal with your customer. None of that stuff should come out in your tone on that phone call. You should be a professional from start to finish. They curse you out, you still be a professional. If they say it's your ma stinking shoe, you just continue to be the professional. Don't get off on them. Your ma, no your ma, before you know it, you forget the loan payment. And the reason why you called. We cannot do that. Okay. And of course, while you're on the phone, as collectors, you're asked to be aware of what we call the danger signal. People say certain things on the phone. When you hear them, you should know that that's a problem for you potentially, or it will become a problem for you potentially. Can you solve them all in that call? Not necessarily. But if you hear any of these danger signals, at least you'll be aware that a problem is looming. You can start thinking about it. Okay? Start a bit. All right. So what are some of the danger signals then? Well, first of all, if a customer says, can I get an extended term or longer time to pay? That means they're in trouble somewhere. Can I get a discount? If they're buying goods and services from a retailer, that suggests that your customer has cash flow problems or money problems. It may not be in detail, but it is a suggestion that it could be so. And that's why we call it a danger signal. Right? What's the other danger signal? Number 2.
Customer says that he is unable to pay.
Yeah, that's a pretty straightforward danger signal. And remember, in our discussion about unable to pay, they're either what? Dead, unemployed, or ill. Okay, those are the kinds of reasons that customers are not able to pay. Of course, the minute they tell you that, you have the good fortune of having them on the phone and saying what? Well, why can't you pay? See? You don't just say, okay, since you can't pay, when you could pay. And they say next week, and you don't get the reason why they can't pay today. You have to find out why. That's what the danger signals are all about. Okay, what's the third danger signal on the phone?
Customers offers to pay part now or part later partial payment.
Yeah, partial payment means you have money problems again. Okay, that's a sign for you to either try and begin the resolution process on the phone or invite them in and encourage them to come so that you can help them make an arrangement that's best for them. See, things like that you have to pick up on. So when the customer, the other point is similar, customer offers to make payments on account, they're not making the full payment, they're only making partial payments again, that's usually a sign that there's a problem. Payments becoming later and later each month, that's a problem clearly. When you look at the file, you see every month it gets later and later past the due date. Also, customers who persistently break promises. Next week, they don't pay. Oh, my dog had to go to the vet. I'll come in next week. They still don't come again. My mother had to have an operation. I'll come in next week. They keep making broken promises. That is clearly a sign that something is wrong. And the collector has to try and find out what's wrong. The other problem, unresolved queries. Remember, if customers keep asking you to fix stuff and they start piling up and you don't, they're going to get frustrated with the organization and they're going to stop paying sometimes because of their frustration. And some of them are bold enough to tell you, when you fix my problems, I'll pay you. I have your money right here in my place. But I'm paying you until you fix my problem. The same one you promised to fix last month and the month before. And then they hang up the phone. I wouldn't suggest you get uptight and call them back and tell them what you're going to do and that they can take their heads. But if I were you as a collector, I'd see if those queries have any basis. And if they are things that need to be fixed before you call the customer back, fix them. So when you call them back, you can say your matters have been resolved. Yeah, will you bring in the payment or can I collect it? You might have better results. All right. And again, the customer has a contra claim. You say they owe 3 months, they say according to their records it's 2 months. So now you have to go back and reconcile to see who was right. So you make a claim and make a contra claim against your claim. The question is who's right? How are you going to know? You have to go back into the records and find out. All right. Which means what? You have to hang up the phone. You have to tell the customer, great, I'll look into it, see if your contra claim is correct, and then get back to you. One thing is certain, you're not going to get that payment today. Okay? But at least you're on the way. They made a contra claim that it's not 3 months, it's 2 months, and so on. And even though you might be 100% perfectly right in your mind, and you might be right at all, you still, once they make that contra claim, you have to say, thank you, Mrs. Jones, I'll get back to you, I'll check it out and let you know. And then you go and check it out and verify to make sure that it is correct. Then you call them back. If not that day, the next day. Okay? So that's your visit. That's your collection form. As you can see, there's nothing straightforward about them, even though when we go about our day-to-day work, we look like it's something straightforward. But really, you can see it involves a whole lot of things if you're a collector. And even if you're a lender, it's important for lenders to understand these things as well. So that one day when they go into collections, or if they continue as lenders, they'll have the understanding of the nature of the collection process, and therefore a greater appreciation for the kinds of loans that they should be contemplating. Okay? And then so we're left with just the third option, the collection letters. Now, let me say, folks, we shouldn't write collection letters just for the hell of it, or to say we did something that day for that account to meet some target. Okay? Collection letters should be written with a purpose. Whenever you sit to write a letter, it should be a purpose. Are you trying to get the customer to respond? That's what we mean by solicit a response. Are you seeking a promise from the customer? Are you trying to find out what the reason is for non-payment? Okay? And so you don't just write the letter for the letter's sake to get something done that day. It has to have a purpose, and the purpose should be about getting the customer to answer you, make a promise, or tell you why they're not paying. Okay? Also, the collection policy should have a predetermined number of letters. You can't write letters infinitum. You can't write 20 letters in 1 month to the same customer. That's absurd. So you decide on how many letters you're going to write, And then you go with that. Many companies tend to have a limit of 3 letters. Some have 5, some maybe a little bit more within a particular month, but the average is about 3 letters. Okay, and that's what we mean by predetermined number. The average is 3. All right. Also, we have to determine when we're writing letters how often we're going to send letters. If we send them too often, people start shooting them in the basket, playing basketball with it, or using the paper for some other reason. The point is, once you decide to do letters, you have to decide how many letters in a month you're going to send. Because sometimes you can send too many, and it has the opposite effect. People start taking it for granted. Say, yeah, and throw it away. Okay? So each time you send it, it should be properly spaced and clearly articulating what your objectives are in that letter. And some customers, because you know them, you know the letter's not going to work, so don't waste your time sending them a letter. But some delinquent officers will still send a letter just to say they couldn't reach the customer, even though that may or may not be true, God forbid, and to indicate that they're taking some action with that particular delinquent account. That's not the ideal way to do it. But if it's the only way available, then you should do it. Okay? All right. And of course, the content of the letter is very important. You can't write any old thing. In the letter, it has to have specific information so that you are clear in terms of what you write to your customer. All right. So
Then the letters assist with when we have to take matters to court, because sometimes they say I've never received a letter to this effect, and I've seen cases where because clients have said that the case was dismissed.
absolutely, it is important in that sense to to send letters, especially if the account is seriously delinquent. It's not a soft delinquent account. It's average to serious in delinquency. It's always a good idea to do that for legal purposes as well. Hopefully, the customer, by the time you get to your third letter or so, and tell them what could happen to them potentially, that they will respond to you. And even if they don't, it'll be your ammunition. Yes, if the matter finally ends up in court and the doggone delinquent customer decides to show up in the first place. But it's okay if they don't show up all the time. Sometimes we can get a judgment in their absence if we have our paperwork together. And whenever they're ready to show up, it'll be too late. They'll just find that they can't borrow anywhere else until the judgment is satisfying. That judgment will also go to our new credit bureau, which will bring the credit score all the way down to an uncomfortable figure. And so, yes, that's an excellent, popular reason, sorry, for writing letters. Okay? You don't write them indiscriminately. You don't write them for people who have a small balance, people whose loan payment is short by, $50, $100, whatever the case might be. You just pick up the phone and call them and resolve it. But those persons who are moving towards average and mid and chronic delinquency, you want to be writing them letters because you know you're on your way potentially to legal action. And the letters will help. All right, enough of me yapping. I need a reader beginning on the page that says collection follow-up. Do I have a reader, a volunteer?
I'll read.
Okay, who said I'll?
Alicia.
Okay, way to go. All right, let it rip.
We're doing collections follow-up, right?
Yes.
The best time to initiate pursuit of outstanding balance. The best time to initiate pursuit of outstanding balances is immediately. As an account gets further behind, the balance often increases, while the chances of collection decrease. The person who owes a few $100s today is not like to be in better shape to pay next week or the week after than right now. Now is the time to start enforcing a rigid collection policy, making whatever chances arrangements are necessary to be sure that you receive the money due to you in a reasonable period of time.
Now, stick a pin, Shalisa, just say that Even though that's a small paragraph right there, some very important things have been said, and I don't want you to miss them. Okay? For example, the best time to pursue a balance is when?
Immediately.
Yes.
Wait,
The longer you take to follow up, the harder it's going to be to get the money. That's just a fact of life with delinquent customers. Okay? Just like dealing with disputes with your significant other or your spouse. The best time to try and resolve it is the time that it's happening. If you let it simmer for a night, a week, a month, you start getting really dead mad with each other and forgetting even why you're mad at each other. Okay? So, like delinquency, you have to deal with it immediately. The sooner you get to the customer, the better your chances of getting paid. If you take too long and let it fall too far behind, it will reduce your chances of getting paid significantly, and it makes your work significantly more difficult. Okay? For sure. Delinquent people tend to become even more delinquent if they don't hear from you, because somehow they think they're getting away with something. And in some cases, if you're not on your game with follow up, they will get away with something one way or the other. So be careful with that. All right. A person who keeps making promises that they'll pay and don't pay, if they can't pay it now, it's not likely they're going to be able to pay it next week or next month. So you actually need to sit down with them and try to determine why they're behaving this way, why they're promising that they can do this stuff and the promises they made previously didn't work, and so on. Okay? Very, very important. All right, keep going, Talisa.
don't be reluctant. Many businesses are reluctant to enforce strict collection procedures. The reason for this are several and none of them are valid. Some people simply are embarrassed to ask for money, even though it is owed to them. Hmm.
Yep,
Others,
yep.
yes,
Mhm. Keep going.
others express concern that they might alienate a good customer and perhaps lose an account. The opposite is true. How good is an account if the bills are not paid? Even more important, the customer owing you a large balance may be reluctant to do more business with you until the account is cleared. You have not only lost your money, you've also lost the customer.
How about that? Keep going.
Some companies feel that rigorous enforcement of collection policy can damage their reputation. Viewed locally, you would conclude that a person who owes you money is likely to spread this news around town.
Are they?
Sure,
If people owe you money, are they going to spread it
No,
around?
sir.
you're gonna
No.
spread the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's going to be the wrong thing, but this shows I won't say they owe you money.
No, they won't.
For sure. All right, keep going.
Collection follow-up. Whether or not your business chooses or use cash discount or delinquent charges, a systematic follow-up procedure should be employed with all past due accounts. Usually this will take the form of a series of letters or telephone calls before both as required. First collection letter. When an account becomes approximately 15 days past due, the customer should be sent the first collection letter.
Let me say, go on, Shalish. Uh, I'm suggesting 15 days here. That doesn't have to be your company's policy. Every company is different. For some people, companies might be 30 days, 10 days, 3 days, 60 days. So that period will vary according to the company's business. Okay, keep going.
Since the account cannot be considered seriously delinquent at this time, the tone of the letter should be moderate. Later letters should establish a firmer tone so that the customer is made aware of the seriousness of the situation.
Mhm. Keep going.
The 15-day past due letter should read as follows. On September 15th, dear Mr. Adams, according to our records, your current balance due is $473.25. Of this amount, $215.38 is more than 30 days past due. As you know, our normal terms require payment within 30 days after the invoice is sent to you. Since you have established an excellent credit rating with us in the past, we are surprised to see a problem arise at this time. If there is some error or you are unable to pay the amount due immediately, please contact me so that we can correct the situation or make arrangements for prompt payment of this obligation. Thank you for your attention to this request. Yours truly, Jim Madison.
Thank you very much, Lisa. So notice the first letter is a soft letter. We're gentle. We're saying hello and thank you for your business. You've been a great customer. Probably just an oversight somewhere. If there's a problem, let us know if we can help. It's really a nice, soft, gentle letter to the customer who's normally paying. They just became delinquent for some reason, and you're sending a friendly letter to remind them that if there's a problem, that you know. If not, please come in and make the payment. All right, so that's a great sample letter as well. You can use that even in your own practice, just adapt it to your situation if necessary. So that's for the soft customer who is like, 15, 20 days past due. No major delinquency yet. All right, who's going to read for me next? Should I?
Get some of them volunteers who want to things hurry up, speed up.
No, any volunteers?
I can go on.
Okay, Charlie, so go on. Second collection letter.
Second collection letter. A letter, 30 days later, might read as follows. If no response has been received from the customer, on October 15th, dear Mr. Adams, we have not received any response from our statements of the last 2 months, nor to our letter of September 15th. Your entire account is now 40 days overdue, and you owe us a total of $473.25.
Mhm.
If there is some reason why this payment cannot be made immediately, please contact us so that we can make arrangements that will be mutually agreeable. Perhaps we can work out a payment schedule that will be realistic for your present circumstances. Naturally, we do not want to endanger our credit rating or destroy the good relationship that we have maintained in the past. Therefore, you would please take care of this obligation immediately so that we will not have to file an unfavorable report within the credit bureau or resort to the use of a collection agency or an attorney. We have enclosed a self-addressed envelope for your convenience. Please return it as soon as possible with your check for the balance owed. Very truly yours, Jim Madison.
Or in this case, so you can see the tone of the second letter has gone a little more intense. I hope you can see the difference. If you can't see the difference yet, just read it again with both of them, and you'll see the second letter has some more intense language than the first letter, and that's really designed to try now to get the customer to really come in and deal with their commitment one way or the other. We're still offering to help them to do everything that we can, but now we're saying you need to deal with this immediately. If you don't, then we have no choice but to get a collection agency or worse. Okay? All right. Keep going, Teresa.
Third collection letter. If this is unsuccessful, a stronger letter should be sent in 30 days. Dates. Dear Mr. Adams, we still have no response from our statements of the past 3 months, nor from the letters we have sent you on September 15th and October 15th.
So now the months in a row, is that a problem? Anyone?
The account says
3 months in arrears now. By the time we get to the third letter, the account is 3 months in arrears. Is that a problem for this company?
yeah.
Yes, it is a problem for any company. All right. Once you get to 90 days and beyond, things are starting to look dim. Okay. Let's say we're not going to collect that account. I'm saying it's going to be much more difficult once it gets to 90 days and apart and beyond to get it. Then your real work and trying to deal with that delinquent customer would have begun, okay, at this stage of the game. All right, so let's see what the collection letter looks like 90 days later.
Your entire account is now seriously past due. It is obvious that our efforts to clear the account on a mutually agreeable basis have had no impact. Unless we receive payment from you within 7 days, or can work out a mutually agreeable arrangement to discharge this obligation, we will have to report the matter to the Retail Credit Bureau. Subsequent, the account will be turned over to a collection agency or to attorneys for further action. Since this is a costly procedure for both of us and will cause serious damage to your credit rating, I would suggest that you call immediately so that we can clear the matter at once without resorting to such procedures. Very truly yours, Jim Madison.
Oh, Chinese. So yeah, you could see now that we're 9 days into this thing, the letter is not gracious at all. It's actually like do this or else kind of situation. And again, these progressive letters are very useful in the court of law if the matter gets to the courts, because the courts will see that the creditor has made every reasonable effort to see. One thing collectors and creditors need to understand, if you take somebody to court and you cannot show that you made a reasonable effort as the professional in the matter, um, to collect the money from the client. Sometimes the courts will side on the part of clients or debtors to give them an opportunity to get their matters resolved, especially if the creditor cannot produce evidence that they tried all reasonable stuff. They made the phone calls and you've written down every call you made and the results. You've even visited. You send enough series of collection letters and you have documentation to prove everything. It's going to be hard for a debtor to find themselves out of that kind of preparation by a creditor or a lender. Okay? That's why these steps are absolutely crucial. They're not only crucial to make your jobs easier, but they're crucial for the company in the long run if it does have to take legal or other action against the customer. Okay? So whenever you're doing this stuff, you are not wasting your time. You are following the proper procedure, and eventually you might help your customer in collecting substantial amounts of money if the matter has to go to court. Sometimes when customers realize that you have a strong case against them and you let them know, some of them actually come in and resolve it because they don't want to go to court, especially if they feel that you have a strong case against them. All right? But not every single customer. There are a handful who don't care. You can hold a loaded cannon to their head. They still won't pay for some reason. God forbid. All right. Thank you very much, Shalisi. You've been very, very gracious. So now I'll call on the only male in the group. His name is Christoph to finish the last 2 pages for us for the evening, since he has been around the collections arena for a while. Okay, Christoph, as you noticed.
As you notice, the tone of each letter became progressively stronger with suggestions of more serious action introduced in each case. The tone that you would want to establish in such stunning letters will often depend upon the type of relationship that you maintain with your customers. However, the ground rules should be clear. Past due accounts should not be ignored.
Period. Okay.
Telephone. Frequently, an even more persuasive approach is through use of the telephone. The ground rules are basically the same. You must become progressively firmer with each call and indicate that stronger measures will be used if necessary to ensure prompt payment.
Now remember, folks, stronger doesn't mean ruder, doesn't mean stinkier, doesn't mean unprofessional. You must be firmer and firmer in a professional manner. And no matter what your customers tell you, you cannot reciprocate with unprofessional behavior. Sometimes customers say things that really tick you off. You cannot respond with unprofessional behavior. that will make your collection efforts more difficult, plus it may land you in other kinds of problems with your organization and otherwise. Okay? All right, keep going.
The telephone has the added advantage of flexibility since you can be more direct with better knowledge of the individual account. Your, you acquire this knowledge through asking questions such as the following. What seems to be the problem? We never had difficulty with your account in the past. How much would be a reasonable amount for you to pay each month? Perhaps $50 or $60? How soon can we expect payment of this account?
Okay.
Try to avoid questions that can be answered yes or no. If the creditor gives you an answer such as, I'll mail it today, answer with, I appreciate that. Then I can expect it in 2 or 3 days. If I don't have it by then, I'll call you back.
Take a pen, Christoph. First of all, that word creditor, should that be creditor?
Borrower,
Yeah, which, and yeah, and another name for borrow is debtor. So please put a line through creditor and put debtor. That's the borrower. Okay, DEBTOR. All right, and notice how this collection clerk handled this situation. Even though the customer said, look, I'm putting it in the mail, they didn't say, don't put my bloody payment in the mail. When you have the money, call me and I'll pick up the cash. Don't do that. If they say they're going to put it in the mail, if that's a customer that you don't really know that well and say, you know what, I'll wait for the cash, uh, then you just simply say, great, put it in the mail. If I don't have anything in 3 days, I'll call you back. So now the customer knows if they didn't have any intention of doing the mail in any way or fashion, now they're kind of stuck. They have to do something. Some will do it, some won't. The point is, you've closed the deal and you closed it using the most effective method. Thank you for putting it in the mail. I will check it in 3 days. If it's not there, we'll call you back. Okay? Beautiful way to handle stuff like that. Keep going.
be sure that the debtor realizes that you are totally aware of the situation and that you do not intend to ignore it.
Okay, again, change creditor to debtor, please. All right. Remember, effective collectors are professional, but they cannot give off delinquent customers if they're intimidated in any way. Okay, you have to go out and try to collect the money professionally that was borrowed or where credit was given in your organization. Otherwise, your organization will start suffering cash flow problems. And if you're not careful, those problems may land you out of a job. It happens. It has happened during the pandemic. It happens even when there are no pandemics. All right, keep going.
External collection resources. If your own collection efforts fail, there are two courses of action that are left to you, the collection agencies and the court. Collection agencies. Collection agencies are businesses established to collect past due accounts receivable on behalf of creditors. The primary advantage that collection agencies offer is the superior knowledge of persuasive collection techniques. Additionally, creditors are usually anxious to clear invoices referred to collection agencies rather than further damage their credit ratings. The collection agency's fee is usually based upon a percentage of each account collected. The percentage ranges from 25 to 50%, depending upon the size of the account or the total dollar value of accounts referred to the agency for collection. This approach, while often effective, can be expensive. A business is committed to paying the agency's fee on any account referenced for collections, whether payment is made to the agency or to the business. Although some creditors may resent making payment to a collection agency and prefer to pay the company directly, the company is still committed to pay the fee when the account is collected.
Please change creditors to debtors there. Change the word
Yeah,
credit.
although some debtors may resent making payments to a collection agency. Yeah.
Why do you think debtors would resent making payment?
Yeah, if they feel like they was dealt wrong or if they being spiteful or
Well, remember, once a debtor account goes to a collection agency, if they go into the collection agency to pay and their friends are on the road driving past or past the bishop thing and pass by, they know.
Embarrassed?
Yeah, I was just gonna say embarrassed.
Yeah, it creates embarrassment. So even though they know they should go to the collection agency to pay because you've already assigned the account, they will still come to you and say, I ain't going to no collection agency, I can pay my thing here. And before you know it, you tell the collection agency, in some cases, send the account back because the customer keeps coming back to the firm, which is fine. Because ideally that's what you want, a resolution. Not all customers are that way because not everybody is so easily embarrassed. Just
Yeah, and
like
it's saying also in a matter because whether you go there or not, they still getting paid because they're the one who basically get you to start paying, eh?
yeah, of course. The key is some customers, because of their embarrassment, will start coming back to the company. Others, they're not embarrassed. They'll keep going to the collection agency. Not only do they keep going, they'll just pay instead of making the full payment, they'll pay half of it, quarter of it, $20. I'll be back next week with the next 20. And they keep paying a small amount, which means that they'll be paying you forever and ever. Amen. Okay, so that's another kind of problem with certain kinds of customers. Thank God those persons are not in huge numbers. They'll
How
make
you
it.
how you mean in you or something? You know, go on the call, people in five figures. How much you could pay? Oh, I need $50 a month.
Yeah. But so luckily for the whole world of lending, more people pay than those who don't pay. Not that the numbers are not significant, but delinquency at worst tends to be around 20-25% of the portfolio. At best, 3 to 5%. So in any event, you always have persons, the delinquent customers are always less, but they are so horrifying sometimes to deal with. It makes it seem as if they exist in far greater numbers relevant to the entire portfolio. When in
Yeah,
fact,
that's weak. I feel like some of they way like they as far as they concerned, they winning up and someone run them down and stuff like that. But
some people are just like that, period. And other people have genuine problems that we saw earlier. Your job as collectors to figure out who is who and then guide your work and your collection efforts accordingly in the most efficient way.
I
All
had
right.
I had someone tell me, call me tomorrow. They ain't get sorted today. Call them the next day. Call me the next day. They ain't get sorted. The third day calling, oh, I stressing them out. I say, hold on, son. You get me confused now. You get me confused.
Yeah, he knows exactly what he's
Yeah.
doing. Yeah,
He stressing.
yeah, because all of that is designed to get
So
you.
come you don't call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
mind you, he's hoping that you'll stop calling him for a while.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I know that's the doctor, but you mind, you get me confused.
Yeah, but you can't stop calling if you keep calling until he says, if you call me again, I'm coming down there, he's throwing cum shell in your desk or something. Then maybe you'll take a day off and don't call. But you have to keep calling no matter what they say. Because customers going to do stuff like that to get you off their backs for a while or for whatever period they want. Okay? Absolutely. Every trick in the book. All right. And then finally,
We on courts.
hmm
If the collection agency fails, your final recourse is to the courts. The matter may be resolved in a small claims court if the amount owed is small. For larger amounts, you may have to file suit to collect. In either case, you are faced with a costly and time-consuming procedure. The best way of avoiding these time-consuming, costly procedures is to take prompt, strong action on your own and early as possible. In the long run, you will be doing not only yourself a favor, but also the creditor. While your creditors may be unhappy at the time, you will have I mean the debtors. While your debtors may be unhappy at the time, you will have spared them cost, time, and the loss of their credit ratings. Yeah, that's debtors, right?
absolutely. All right. Please change that again. So there you have it. If your collector in-house does not get the job done, you can say and send it to a collections agency. If they don't work for some reason, you have to finally take the account back from the agency and seek legal action to try and get some kind of action against the delinquent customer. and hope that they're working and available and can be found so that whatever the courts rule, that they will be so intimidated by the courts, they'll pay. Unfortunately, not everybody in the world is intimidated even by the courts. So whatever ruling the courts make, they still end up paying less or nothing if you take them back to court if you can find them. And then the courts rule that to be in contempt, and they say, okay, I'll pay $20 now. Or they may go and say, all I could pay is $20 a month, Your Honor, because I'm only working on and off. And then the courts oftentimes might rule in their favor and say, fine, bring me $20 a month. And they keep coming every month with $20, and your account balance is slowly going nowhere. All right, but that's not too often. You
Yeah, I
just
said it before on the judge, and I mean, I agree with the judge at the time because the lawyer was trying to dispute it, but the judge said, "What you really want me doing? You trying to get some type of money? If they wasn't giving you nothing and we in a pair, I only could award and go with what they say they have, unless you, I guess, it on them to prove otherwise. But yeah, it's something. Although it sucks, but it's something sometimes.
Yeah, if the debtor can prove that that's all they can pay, then the court will allow it. If the debtor claims that that's all they can pay, the courts will have them checked out. If
Yeah,
they
crossing out. Yeah, and stuff.
discover that they could pay more, then the judge will say, "Are you kidding me? You want me to hold you in contempt? Based on our investigations, you can pay 200 a month. Pay it or I'm locking you up, dude," so to speak. Okay. All right. So there you have it. A whole lot of stuff stuffed in those pages on how to be a successful collector. Those of you who are collectors, I encourage you to use those issues. And those of you who are not collectors, at least now, I hope you have a better idea of what goes on in the apartment behind you or across the way called the collections department. Okay? And one of these days when you get to talking to each other, at least you will understand their language because of our discussion tonight. At least certainly to some extent. All right. Any questions at this point of the game?
Yes,
Anybody?
sir. Yes, sir. Although ain't I trying to wrap my mind around it, but boy, I was exam supposed to play. Do you remember these? Put all these orders inside your head now.
Uh,
Yeah.
that that's one good way to do it. Yes. So that whatever question I ask you, they're sitting right in your head, waiting for me to ask them.
All right, boy. I see. I don't have it right now.
I know. It's called studying it every day until exam time. That's really the best solution. Every day until exam time. When you finish everything, start again. When you finish everything, and you keep doing that until exam time. That's the best way to do it. Just learn it.
Our paper still due next week too, sir?
Yes. Let's not forget
Okay.
the papers.
You know what a week.
They are due next week, Wednesday. If you finish it before Wednesday, you may send it in. Okay? I hope
So we
you
can
know.
inform Wednesday and we get study. Wilkerson?
Well, you should have been working on it since when?
Wilkerson is difficult. I mean, especially when you have family and your children and it's
Trust
rough.
me.
It's
I
rough.
I know it's
But I love my deadline. If that's the deadline, that's the deadline.
yeah, no, that's fine. Next Wednesday is fine.
Yeah, I the same way. So
It's just rough. It's
I
been rough for me.
It's not easy if you are a spouse and you have children. It's hard if you're just a working person without those things. Spouse and children, you have a major issue.
And when you're old too, when you're going on 60, I didn't even make it worse.
When you're getting up, so you have a triple whammy. I
Yes,
know.
sir.
Yeah, so you have to use all of your time wisely. You can't not
Every
sleep.
minute, every minute. Oh,
You can't sleep normal hours anymore. You have to cut them down until it's
I
dark.
just go to bed early. That's the problem. At my age, you go to bed early.
But then you should never leave Sophia. But you are going to
Sophia,
16.
do you do it at work while you have free time?
Excuse
Yeah,
me?
Do
How
you
you
do it
do it
at
on the
work while you
job?
have free time?
No, man, you can't do it on the job.
I been getting my buck the way straight through and can't
Yeah,
ever get back.
in between times.
No, I
But you,
saying
that's
I
how.
being honestly, I been getting
Uh,
my work the book. I been getting
anyway,
my book the
Yeah.
way straight through.
could Miguel have this video up by tomorrow?
I would think so.
Because at least when you're to work, you can listen to it as it plays. That's different, you know? If we can have this video up, that'd be good.
Because some people do well and do better sometimes listening in addition to studying, because they tend to remember things if they hear it over and over. So if that works for you, perfect. If it's not up by end of day tomorrow, you know what to do. Send an email to Miguel and
Yeah,
myself.
yeah. I
So in
will.
case Miguel goes out in the left field doing something, I could call him as well and say, Miguel, we have an exam next week. Okay? So if you don't see it up by today, end of day tomorrow, send an email to both of us and say blah blah blah.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Any other questions? If you
Sophia, now we can talk.
Yeah, class. Oh, you always gonna cut me out of my time in class. No way. Remember, you're young, you know. I tell you, I'm around 60, all of you all young.
yeah, young people talking fool, because they can actually sit up at any time and read all that stuff overnight and remember because their brain is still young. Uh, for those of us over 50, we can't mess with that. We learn everything early, and I mean everything.
Oh, gee.
All right.
You're privileged, girl. Go ahead.
If you think of anything during your study time that you feel you want to raise a question, send me an email. I'll be happy to respond. If during your study time something you're stuck on something, let me know. I'll answer you straight away. All right. So other than that, good luck with your study and your preparations. Please don't leave your research paper for the last minute. You should have been working on it from the first day you got it. I know that's not always possible, but still do not wait until the last minute to try and do all this stuff. Start and continue your studies now, continue your paper now. Try to get one or the other done or both, however you do it as quickly as you can. Keep studying the material over and over. That's your best way to be successful in the examination. So if you go to bed early and get up early, like you go to bed 8 o'clock and you get up 4 o'clock for some reason, for example, you spend 1 hour on your paper, 1 hour studying. If you have 3 hours, you spend an hour and a half on your paper, hour and a half studying. That's the way you do it. And you do it every day until examination. When this weekend comes, spend the whole weekend finishing your paper and the rest of the weekend studying. That's it. So by Monday, you're just reviewing your work and your paper is done. You're just reading it over for errors. If you don't do it that way, your life will be a living hell next week as the examination day approaches. Please start doing it in 2 parts tonight, if possible. Go to sleep first, get up and do it. And do it every single day into the weekend. And on Saturday, finish your paper and keep going over your notes. And on Sunday, keep going over your notes until you're sick and tired of them. So by Monday and Tuesday, you're just cruising along because you know it so well. It stinks. It's boring you to death. How's that? I know that's easier said than done. But that is a plan. Remember the collections plan. That is your study plan and your paper plan. Give it a shot. Those of you who follow anything like that, you will not regret it. In the meantime, if you have any questions in the future as you study and prepare, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer them. All right. Any other questions? Fantastic. Good luck with your preparation and your paper. And be safe while you're doing all that crazy stuff. I'm happy it's not me and it's you. All right.
All right, so
Remember, the examination will be at the center. For those persons who are outside of New Providence, I'll be making arrangements with Miguel and Company. If you do not hear from me about your arrangements by Monday, Island folk, please send me a note somewhere and say, is it confirmed that we're going to be doing this thing by virtually, which of course you have to. Just want to make sure everything is in place for exam day on Wednesday. All right. All
yes,
right.
sir.
Good luck and take
Okay,
care.
good night.
All right, good night.
Right.
Good night.
Livonia, are you there yet? What would happen to Livonia?